Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Backseat Designers season finale. We are we are Trolls Climate and Frederick Olsen, and we are here with some people who are way cooler than us who actually know what they're doing.
Indeed.
And if you watched last year's season finale, what we're basically going to do is we're going to talk with all these lovely guests who will be introducing themselves in a minute or two once I start rambling, and then we're going to ramble a bit further on about the topics that we covered during Season 2 of Backseat Designers. And no, sorry, Brandon, we're not going to play the main theme because it's just too complicated. So, you all know Trolls, who appears to be freezing intermittently, at least on my screen.
Your connection is total bullshit.
Yeah, my connection is bullshit. Yeah, right. My connection is usually bullshit, especially in episode 11 or whatever the fuck.
Why did you insist on hosting this again?
Because I want to have a chance. I want to have some thunder. I can't be Paul Schaefer all along. Anyway, to the right of Trolls is a Canadian gentleman called Brian. So, Brian, tell us who you are and what you do.
What the fuck are you doing on our stream? Sorry.
Hi there, folks. Hey, I'm Brian. I'm the host of the Square Waves FM podcast, and I am a sometimes fair weather musician and game designer myself, and very happy to be here. Big fan of your show and of both of your music.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That warms my nipples.
It warms mine too. My nipples were already fairly warm when we started.
You're just not the fan.
They're warmer.
Yeah. And Brian is, of course, the host of the Square Waves FM podcast. I'm stealing Jacob's paradigm voice here.
And he already said that anyway.
No, yeah, but I just wanted to mention how cool the show is because he has a show about nerdy stuff from the past and all this sort of jazz, and it's a really cool podcast, and you should all go listen to it.
In other news, Brian is called Brian.
Did I not say that? What did I say?
It was just he introduced himself as host of Square Waves FM, and you went on to say Brian is, of course, the host of Square Waves FM.
Yeah, but that had a point to it. Oh, fuck it, just keep going.
Yeah, all right.
Your podcast is awesome. Keep going.
Over to the right of Brian is a gentleman wearing sunglasses and little else, Francisco Gonzalez. How are you doing, man? Tell the world who you are and why you like to dress inappropriately.
I got confused because Jacob is actually next to the right of Brian on my end.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just. To you, it may appear like I'm taking you on in random order, but now he has no sunglasses.
Yes, I'll look at the camera. Hi, I'm Francisco Gonzalez. I'm a game designer. Nice. I made a game last year called The Golden Wake. I currently work for Wadjet Games, designing a game called Shardlight currently. I've been making point-and-click adventure games for a long time, all freeware. And I'm not wearing much because it's hot in New York and my air conditioning makes a lot of noise, so...
That's my excuse as well. I'm wearing this because it's hot.
I feel like I need to make a really bad pun and then put on my sunglasses, like CSI style.
Yeah!
So I'll just say that it's not all fun and games.
And then the Who kicked in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Meet the new boss.
We have to stop there because of copyright.
All right.
Yeah. Sorry, Pete Townsend. Over next to him, at least on my screen, we have we have an Australian gentleman, Jacob Janerka. Hello, Jacob. Tell us what you're doing here. And please show that weird mask again. That was really cool.
Well, that was actually my skull.
Your skull?
Popped it out of his head and then put it on.
You saw it here first, folks.
Jacob Janerka has two skulls. Sorry.
I have two skulls.
Keep going.
I like to keep one as company because I just sit in this room all day just making video games. It becomes very lonely.
So skulls.
Yeah.
You make it sound so glamorous.
Look at this glamorous room. This is the Kickstarter money. This room has made a beautiful palace. But yeah, I'm Jacob Janerka. I make the point-and-click adventure game Paradigm. It's still in process. Did a Kickstarter about 8 months ago. It was pretty successful, and now I'm just spending more time making that bad boy.
And it's funny as hell. You should all go and play the demo, please.
Yeah, go play the demo. I haven't, and apparently I'm very wrong in not having done so. So I'll take swift steps to rectify that, because I hear great things about it, and I wish you the best of luck on it.
Also, you are wrong in many things.
I'm wrong in most ways. I will add. I think I'm gonna.
My whole life is a failure, so don't worry.
I'm gonna skip the guest of honor for now, so we can bring out the big fireworks afterwards. If you don't mind, Josh. Next.
I'm just a lurker.
Just too polite to say anything.
We've got finally the lone woman shining a light on things here, Serena Nelson, over on the far side of my screen. How are you doing, Serena? Tell us a bit about who you are.
Nice to meet you, Serena.
Hey, I'm Serena, obviously. I take my shirt off, but this will quickly turn this into an NC-17 podcast.
Please keep your shirt on, ma'am. This is a boys' club. Haven't you heard?
Testosterone!
I'm the self-proclaimed heroine of the adventure game revival movement.
That's heroin with an E at the tail of it. You're not a powerful opiate, I gather.
Not yet. I'm working.
Wait, we don't know her that personally. Oh God, I'm sorry.
I write for. Well, I used to write for Kickstarter Adventures, but now I just help run it, and I am an avid writer for Clickist, another crowdfunding gaming site, because it's all about ethics and games journalism.
Boom! Boom! To say that. Well played. Well played.
Ooh. Let's just call off the game. She wins. It's over.
Yeah. Baldwinian roulette is now over. We have a champion.
That was so good. Also, Serena, one thing I've always wanted to ask you, and I've never had the balls to do it. Where are you from?
From California.
You're from California? Because the accent throws me.
I get that a lot, actually.
Are you like did you immigrate from Germany or Austria or something and just don't tell people or?
No, but I do have some German blood in me.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So maybe that's maybe I get a little of that from there. From my.
Is that something you've just been sipping warm this morning?
Maybe television just lied to me, and this is how Californians actually sound.
You went all black on my screen, man. It was an improvement. Could you go back and do that again?
What, me?
Yeah, you.
Your connection sucks, man.
Anyway, time to introduce the guest of honor, whom we'll actually also be talking a bit about, as opposed to during this special. What the hell is he doing there? We have a gentleman on the broadcast who is currently acting as if he's a cat. Josh Mandel. This may be completely obvious, but will you please introduce yourselves to those who are idiotic enough to not know you?
Or maybe their minds just haven't been filled with useless trivia. My name is Josh Mandel. I have been a game designer for a little over 25 years now, and I twist balloons, and I always swing at the low-hanging fruit in my game.
and I hear you designed King's Quest or Lisa Shoot Larry or something like that.
Something like that.
Something like that. Right.
Yeah, but not quite that.
No, definitely not that.
Actually, just to fill people in, Josh Mandel is the unsung hero of Sierra Online, the good old classic company, ghostwriter for many of the VGA classics that you've all played. Pretty much.
If you see good writing in a King's Quest game, then it's Josh Mandel. If you see bad writing, then it's Roberta Williams.
Shots fired!
Jane might listen to this
Oh,
someday.
Jane Jensen,
Sorry
definitely.
you
King's
said
Quest
that.
6 was brilliant. Sorry, Jane.
Anyway.
So anyway, now we're all familiar, and we can let things get even more awkward. So basically, what we're gonna do is we're gonna, as I said, run through every topic that Trolls and I covered during season 2 of Backseat Designers. So let's start out, man. I need to bring the email with details up because I'm a total amateur.
I've got it.
The first thing that we talked about was clear goals in adventure games, or lack thereof. You're probably all familiar with this because some games tell you exactly what you need to do, and some games just drop you in the middle of this world, and you have to figure out what to do. So what's your preference? What do you guys think?
Not everyone at once, please.
Well, yeah, everyone at once.
Okay, I'm gonna point at someone at random and just because I want to hear from the game designers and then the fans. So I'm just gonna go by line. Francisco, your opinion on clear goals versus just in medias res, dropped in, know nothing. Point of order, sir. All right, next person.
No, I think, I mean, I like games to have clear goals, not overly clear. Like, I've been playing Dreamfall Chapters, and it has a little goals button where you press G and it gives you a little laundry list of what your goals are. And that's kind of helpful, but it kind of takes you out a little bit to just knowing you have a laundry list. I mean, I definitely don't like to just sort of be wandering around aimlessly with no idea of what to do next, and if it doesn't give you any sort of indication of what you're supposed to do next, that is frustrating. So
Right.
I lean more towards telling you what you have to do.
I like it. It's a pet peeve of mine to have a game where you're just wandering around going, what the hell does this game want from me? But then there's the other pitfall, which is to just have a list of objectives. Just go, you should do this and you should do this. The Telltale Back to the Future games are notorious for this.
Yeah, have an objective list or a journal. I mean, I personally like the journal because it can add immersion if done right, but if done wrong, it can subtract from it.
Yeah. So Jacob, being a surrealist, and would you please take off the sunglasses? It's really distracting me. I want to look at your pretty eyes.
Sissy, never had the sunglasses.
So anyway,
Have any eyes?
being I just expected them to be like black hollow cavities. No, never mind.
Away.
Demon.
You're creating a very surreal comedy game where sense is kind of thrown out the window, I guess. So how do you handle telling the player what you want to do, but not just shoving them in the right direction?
It really depends on like what kind of game you're designing. Like, I'm not obviously amazing at it yet, but for a game like mine, like, I break a lot of the fourth wall to like tell the character like what to do and use it as like a joke or a gag most of the time. To-do lists are probably like, you don't want a to-do list unless you're making fun of it, really. Like, I mean, again, it depends what kind of game it is. Like, I prefer that the game itself, like, you can figure it out what to do.
But not explicitly thrown at you.
Yeah, nah, like, it should be, I reckon it should be more of a natural process, but that's not always the case, though. Unfortunately. It's not super easy.
Yeah, to put it mildly.
Dude, do you have any like favorite examples of games that do this well? Like sort of nudge you in the right direction without explicitly putting a text on screen that says "New objective, go distract this guy."
Oh, really
I'm putting
depends,
people
like,
on the spot here.
I was gonna say like Half-Life, but that's just like you're still kind of on the rails. Like, there's only like one place to go. I can't think of anything off my top of my head, man. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Of course. And of course, Half-Life is not strictly quit strictly. It's not an adventure game at all. And don't get trolled started on action adventures, please. For the love of God, don't. No No one mentioned Tomb Raider.
Oh God, the pain, the pain. But let's hear from the expert, shall we? Mr. Naked
Josh,
Guy.
you had a Mr. Naked Guy Mandel. You worked on a ton of different games while at Sierra, and I get the impression that you actually worked on games that did, you worked on games that had clear goals, and you also worked on games that just, dropped you into the middle of the world you inhabited. Sorry.
Space Quest.
Yeah. So which model do you prefer, and why?
Oh, I prefer to. It depends on whether I'm designing or playing, and what kind of game I'm designing. Like I think Jacob was saying, it really depends on the kind of game, because there are some adventures where just finding out what you're supposed to do is part of the exploration, and I don't see anything wrong with that, and occasionally I like that. But to write, I like the player to know what they're supposed to do, because if it was real life, of course you would know what you're supposed to do. How often in real life do you get dropped down in the middle of nowhere or some new environment and have absolutely no idea what to do? Not very often.
You just described me at every social occasion.
That's actually a very nice segue into because I wanted to ask Brian the same question, our esteemed podcast compatriot. So I'm just going to say Myst, and then let you run with it.
Could you do a bit less sibilance? Could you not say Myst ever again? My ears are burning.
I can talk to Myst.
Yeah, but Brian, you're one of the only people in the world who actually thinks Myst is a decent game. So please,
Hey, I think it's pretty good.
please tell me why that's a good game, even though it explains nothing at the start.
All right, so I'm lousy at Myst, but what I do like about Myst is the fact that you have to kind of understand who you are as the protagonist. That's sort of the first thing that you do, and you have to kind of discover what is the history, like the immediate recent history of the place that you're in, and what are the problems that need solving. And as Josh mentioned, you have to do that through exploration. So I do appreciate that to an extent you, the player, yourself, are the protagonist of Myst. However, kind of the identity of the protagonist is sort of secondary to what's going on in the world around you. And so you discover that by looking at objects and deciding whether they look brand new or whether they're...
Oh.
Did we just lose him?
What's written.
You should never mention Myst on our show. It always
breaks.
There I
You
go.
think this was a coincidence?
Other than Myst that I wanted to bring up for this question. That would be Police Quest 2. No, Police Quest 1 and Police Quest 3, actually. I think those are good examples
so not 2.
Where...
every other Police Quest game then.
Well, I think those are examples of it not being too important for you to have a clear, immediate goal, because it depends on the protagonist, it depends on the game. In those games, you are a police officer, and your job initially is to just patrol and see what comes your way. And I sort of appreciate the fact that you kind of have the double pleasure of, number one, driving around the city and seeing what's out there, and number two, seeing what kind of seemingly random events kind of happen your way. And you sort of define yourself as a police officer, and the city sort of defines itself as a character itself by means of exploration and those encounters.
That is very poetic.
I think Josh was kind of politely putting his hand up because he wanted to say something. We should do that instead of just barging in on each other.
Very politely. That harkens back to what I was thinking about the kind of game it is, because games like Police Quest are actually a little more of a simulation than an adventure game, and in the simulation it's a lot more appropriate, I think, to allow you to discover what you need to do.
Is it really? Is it because if Police Quest is a cop simulator, Is Codename Iceman then a bullshit simulator?
You just went full on Velociraptor. Police Quest is a police simulator.
No, but honestly,
Codename
Iceman is a piece of shit, which just has you looking in the manual every 30 seconds because you might have missed something. And so if that counts as a simulator, then where does the adventure element come in?
Well, it's interesting. We should bring up Police Quest, and we'll get to you, Serena, in a minute. But
sorry, Serena.
It's interesting because I do agree that there is a simulation element. But what's interesting is all the different ways it was implemented in the different games. Because Police Quest 4 is definitely a simulation. No questions about it. If you if you don't write this or that in your notebook on that day, you're fucked, basically.
I always like to say that Police Quest 4 is just a filling out paperwork simulator.
It is.
It's the dull version of Papers, Please.
It is a filling out. It is a filling out paper simulation by an angry man who was just sad that he couldn't choke black people, which he said was easier.
The narrator in that game is very cynical and accusatory in general.
It is evil. Incidentally, bit of trivia that I learned is that the intro where you uncover the dead kid in the dumpster was actually programmed by none other than Scott Murphy.
Which is one of the reasons why Space Quest 6 was left in the capable hands of Mr. Mandel, because Scott was busy contemplating suicide while coding Police Quest 4.
Yeah, apparently it was hell. So, Serena, first of all, you mentioned that you like Myst. Repent. But apart from that, what do you make of all this? Clear goals or total mayhem?
Well, like Josh said, depends on the game. In the case of Myst, it's more of an exploration game than a Sierra
game.
I mean, I love the lore of the Myst series. I love, but like the first game, actually Myst and Riven both just drop you into a world. You don't know what you really don't know what you're supposed to do. I mean, I like a little bit of hint. I don't like it's in your face. You need to do this checklist. But on the opposite spectrum, I also don't want to be dumped into a world not knowing what to do. I mean, I can walk into a mode and get eaten by alligators in the first screen, like in the first King's Quest game.
Oh yeah.
But I like it somewhere in the middle of the spectrum, where you have an idea of where you need to go, but you don't want to be handheld.
I just have to bring up when you mentioned alligators, the first thing that popped into my head was Charles.
Darn it!
I'm sorry.
I knew
Ben has
it
gone
was
into my
coming.
head.
I thought the biggest hint about what to do in Myst was when I right-clicked on the Myst icon and it said eject.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so he did, and he's clearly never been happier.
Okay, so a brief roundtable just to wrap this up. The elephant in the room, of course, for me personally anyway, is Space Quest 4, where
I thought it was your scarf.
Sorry?
I thought it was your scarf.
The other elephant in the room.
That's a leopard, I think. Not a leopard, but a leopard.
I can actually do elephant ears. Look, no, never mind.
No, wait.
I would like to point out that my tie, believe it or not, this is a magic eye tie.
Oh,
you
everyone squint
horizontally and cross your eyes. It actually says things.
Are they naughty?
Does it vocally say things, or are things written on it?
Things are written on it.
Okay, just wanted to make sure clearly.
Is there a little sailboat on it?
We shall, of course, post a Twitter picture of Josh's tie so you can all squint your eyes and go blind.
I will scan it for you.
Thank you. Anyway,
hopefully not while you're wearing it.
But I wanted to wrap this up, and because we've all played Space Quest 4, right? I mean, Brian has, Francisco has, Jacob probably has, I'm guessing.
Sorry.
No? He's shaking his head. Dude! All right, you can sit this one out.
Out.
But this is a game that I absolutely love. I mean, seriously. And it does the exact opposite of what Fred and I were talking about in the episode about clear goals, which is to actually give the player some sort of context of why you're actually here and what you're supposed to do. It just dumps you in, and everything is out to kill you. And I still love this game. So why does it work? Fred, you go first.
Well, you're in a sticky situation, so you do have a clear goal. You have to get the fuck out, and you have to, you know, I think that being in a state of so much confusion that you have this impulse to find out, well, why the fuck am I here? Where am I? Is also kind of a clear goal in itself. I mean, it's not just empty exploration. You're not at any point in a comfort zone in that game where you can just sit and chill. You're on the run, basically, and it's an interesting goal for an adventure game to have, but in my mind, it most definitely is a goal.
Okay, because to put the question in context, this comes from a very old discussion I had with Mr. Mandel. I'm just going to call you Mr. from now on.
Mr. Magic Eye Time Mandel.
Which is that, you know, Space Quest 6 got a lot of shit for just dumping you on Polysorb 860, and Josh made the very astute point, I thought, is that Space Quest 4 did exactly the same thing, and people were not at all upset about that. So, you know, why is that? But Brian, Space Quest 4, clear goal.
I guess Space Quest 4 kind of qualifies the whole wandering around thing by like framing it in the intro, where your son like opens up this time portal for you, and you have to jump through it and kind of fend for yourself. You don't know what the thing is or where you're going or where you're going to land. And in fact, I do have fond memories of seeing for the first time Space Quest 4 being demoed in a Radio Shack store. And I noticed on the title bar on the top it said Space Quest 12. And I like talked to one of the proprietors saying, I think your game has a bug in it or something. So I always thought it was awesome that just as Fred said, you start off on the run, and like once again, because your goal is kind of dictated by what sort of a protagonist you are. He's kind of like a hapless protagonist that sort of squeaks by, somewhat having to do with his wits, but also somewhat having to do with fortuitous circumstances. So,
and a fancy uniform.
And a snazzy uniform. So it's kind of cool that you just kind of walk around and scrape together whatever you can and narrowly avoid being decapitated.
Okay,
unless you're playing it on a fast computer, then you don't avoid shit.
Let's not go there.
Today I've not played that game on the CD-ROM version. I own the floppy version, and it's the only one I've ever played, so it doesn't have those timer bugs apparently.
Francisco, clear goals in Space Quest 4. Why does it get a free pass? In my book.
Why don't you tell me?
This argument completely fell apart. Why do I think it gets a free pass? Go.
Please read my mind and go.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, Space Quest, I pretty much agree with Brian. I mean, the whole idea of, like, you know, you don't have necessarily a clear goal specifically of, like, you know, hey, defeat Bohol or whatever, but you kind of have this idea of, like, well, here I am in this weird place, I guess I should look around, and, you know, stuff kind of gets revealed to you as it goes, and then it opens up the whole, you know, thing with the time pod and everything. So, I mean, I think it's pretty well paced.
Cool.
That's all I have to say, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, cool, yeah, I know this is kind of a weird question.
I have the box that I can pet while I talk about it.
Oh, my nipples just went hard.
Yeah, and
I actually lied. No, sorry, continue, Francisco.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that this is showing how long ago I got this.
Oh no!
So yeah. I do also have the CD-ROM. So.
Oh, and you just have that within arm's reach. I love it.
No, I very subtly snuck off to go get it from my shelf back there. I have a whole bunch of my old Sierra games back there. So.
No, he's lying. He keeps them with him at all times.
My chair is actually made out of them.
So
game boxes and tears.
Before we wrap this one up, Serena, Space Quest 4, clear goals, go.
Well,
I'm getting strong Mad Max vibes from her outfits.
Well, the opening
What a wonderful
sequence
day.
pretty much tells you what you need to do. I mean, you're zapped by a freaking time-traveling vacuum cleaner, and you travel to the future. I mean, holy crap, robot zombies. I mean, it's like, of course you have to run around trying to not get caught by them or you die. But
That thing will forever be, embedded in my head. That thing that just goes.
that's screaming. It's like 2 words: unstable ordnance.
Ooh.
Unstable ordnance.
Definitely.
And Infamous Adventures did something very nice with that piece of unstable ordnance, didn't they?
Yes, they did. But anyway, this is the one I really wanted to ask Josh, because I don't know if you remember the conversation we had about Space Quest 6 getting shit for just dumping you on Polysaur 60.
I'm just gonna lock the screen on Brian over here.
Sorry, that's just too good.
It's time to get up, motherfuckers!
Oh, can I get back on point? Sorry. Yeah, Josh. Why do you think that Space Quest 4 got away with it and Space Quest 6 didn't? In many people's eyes, I guess.
I guess because maybe in Space Quest 6 there was no pressure on you to. I mean, like what Serena was talking about with avoiding this and avoiding that. They weren't very clear goals, but they were negative goals, so at least they were goals. I mean, don't get caught by this, don't get caught by that. So it becomes a little bit of a, kind
of an obstacle course, really.
Yeah, and Space Quest 6 didn't even have that at the beginning. Now, there was supposed to be something at the beginning of Space Quest 6, and I don't even remember whether it made it in or not, about there being a couple of goals. The goal was to find a hotel and to stay at the hotel. But I don't know if that text ever ended up in the game.
I don't think it ever gets explicitly mentioned. It's just something that you do because you're on shore leave, but at no point does Roger say, I should find a hotel.
Well, it should have said that somewhere along the way. That was always the idea.
Well, that would probably have been a good idea, yes.
There were a lot of things that might have been a good idea if they had made it from the design document to the game. But
that could have been a clear advantage, but Sierra wasn't very keen on that at the time, were they?
Keen on what?
On following design documents, on not recording the voice of King Graham when they suddenly realized 2 days before shipping that shit, we're not going to put him in King's Quest 7. Looking at Sierra history, it just seems like this is the time period where you can crack open the game resources and you find so much stuff that is not unlockable in the game itself. I mean, voice files of King Graham, unused lines in Space Quest 6. There's just a heap of stuff that was nowhere near implemented, but was clearly written and sketched out at some point. So it's kind of a shame, I think.
Well, the company was really in turmoil back then, and I think maybe this is one of the ways that filtered down into the actual product. You never knew when you came into work who was going to be in charge of you, what the budget was going to turn into, what the schedule would be, what rooms were still in the game, and what had been cut out for one reason or another. It was very chaotic there at the time, so I'm not surprised.
No, it must have been pretty frustrating. I mean, it was frustrating for players, but to work in an environment like that must have been borderline hell. Yeah.
Well, I couldn't do it. I mean, that's why I left. I mean, it was too much. It was crazy. So, congratulations to the people who were able to wade through that, although my perception is that they never got out of that situation again. I mean, it became chaotic, and it all went downhill from there.
And then it crashed and burned. But let's not tear into old wounds.
No,
let's keep a jovial attitude and keep moving on.
Yeah, we're gonna pull ourselves out of a very depressing subject here and move on to the next one, which is game length. This is ripe for puns.
Do you prefer length or girth?
Too long, too short. Let's reverse it this time round and start with the fans first, and then make our way to the designers. Why don't we? So, Serena, what do you think about length?
Well, I'm not a huge fan of length. I prefer girth. But,
amen to that.
Oh, God.
But it depends on the game.
I'm just gonna get drunk. Fuck this.
When I was younger, when I had more time to play, it didn't matter to me. I mean, long, short, whatever. But today, more people tend to like more bite-sized chunks. That's just why episodic games are so popular. Well, to some people. But it really doesn't matter much to me how long a game is, as long as it has a good story and decent puzzles.
So actually, the length is really inconsequential, as opposed to does it have an interesting story or not. Have you ever like played a game where you just went, my God, I wish this went on for longer, or conversely, a game where you just go, is this over yet? Come on. I love putting people on the spot. It's so much fun. Fantastic.
I wish it was more static. No.
What do you make?
Not really.
What do you make of episodic? And something else I should probably ask you to, put this into context, is that something else that we brought up on the episode where we discussed game length is it just marketing bullshit when you put something like 12 hours of gameplay on the cover or whatever the hell you'd write? Is it a complete? Well, clearly it is, but we're supposed to reach that conclusion through conversation, man.
I'll just play with my scarf.
Yeah, play with the scarf. Play with it. Anyway, is that total bullshit?
I can finish a game in an hour. I can finish a game in 12 hours. It's all subjective, actually.
Yeah.
But you're not actually going to go out on a limb and say this game was total bullshit because it was too short or too long or why the hell? Okay, let me just.
Flipping that around, can you think of a game that was just right? Wasn't too long, wasn't too short. It just left you satisfied on that count.
Oh, I've got one.
I have to think on that one. I mean, I've enjoyed pretty much every adventure game I've played, so.
No way. I call bullshit. I call bullshit. You can't possibly have enjoyed every adventure game you play. Have you played Phantasmagoria?
Next question. No, I've never played Phantasmagoria, but I've heard that was crap.
Think about it and then raise your hand if you come up with either. A game that wasn't a proper length at all, or one that was. So let's move on to Brian. What do you make of length, Brian?
What do I make of length? We're still talking about games, right?
We're still talking about games. But why would you think anything else? I mean, here I am, dressed perfectly modestly, asking you a very serious question.
You're the one asking me the
man up a bit, dude.
All right, what do I think?
Guy with no shirt.
What is
fucking Mark Wahlberg?
I think game length is less important than how long the narrative stays relevant. Like, you can have a 10-minute game that's totally satisfying, and you can have a 12-hour game that just drags on and on.
Good quote, by the way.
It's a lot more.
Yeah, that was actually a very, very enlightened point. Definitely.
Brian's good with those.
Yeah.
That's why we have him on the show, to make us feel less intelligent.
We could make like 30.
Very mature guy, okay?
That is a very, very good point. A game should not outstage welcome. And how do you prevent a game from outstaying its welcome? Have you ever watched a movie where you just go, okay, now the credits are gonna roll, and then it just fades out, fades in, and then there's 20 minutes to go of people just shuffling around their room going, wow.
That was Return of the King.
I feel that way about most Pixar movies.
Sorry?
I feel that way about most Pixar movies. Like they have a point at which you go, that would be a nice ending, and then they add a chase.
Yeah.
That was actually on the subject of Pixar. That was like the first 10 minutes of Up. The first 10 minutes of Up is like the most heartbreaking fucking 10 minutes you're ever gonna experience. And I just thought, if that was a short, it would have absolutely killed me. I'm glad it faded out and faded in, and we got the rest of the story. But after that little intro, I was ready to go buy a rope. Basically, it was evil.
Fred is a fragile human being.
I think I noticed Serena was raising her hand. So what do you got?
I thought of a game that was way too short that I wish was longer.
Serena.
Oh, it warms my heart.
Oh, that does. That does. But we can't, for legal reasons, talk about that because then that would be tantamount to masturbation.
Well, it is all about ethics and game journalism.
It's supposed to be healthy.
Ooh, did anyone hear Francisco just go boom?
Yeah, I heard him. But I'd rather make points about masturbation being healthy, so.
Which it is, kids.
Supposedly it is. See, you don't want to get cancer? Masturbate. Watch Pixar movies. Play Serena.
No, God. Okay, Fred, you just put the weirdest image in my head. Just this entire...
I don't know if you want to separate masturbation and Pixar in one sentence.
Well, they do have a character named Moody.
Well, I mean, it does give Up a whole new meaning, doesn't it?
Yeah, Up.
And beyond.
And I'm just picturing this cancer ward of people just jerking off, just bald with IV tube stuck in their arms and just going.
There may be hope for us yet. Anyway,
I'm sorry. This is the darkest we've ever gotten.
Moving swiftly on.
It can become darker. If you want to become darker, it will happen. It's late here. It's 3 a.m. right now. It can get dark.
Tell me something. Do you bleed? Anyway, moving on to the designers, I want to ask Josh about this because once again you've got a very varied resume, and some of the games that you worked on were because of necessity, because of the technology you had to work with back then, they weren't necessarily short. And then when you moved on to like the mid-90s, you suddenly had a CD-ROM at your disposal, and you could just cram a lot of stuff on it. So what do you think of length? Was it strictly a case of technology when you started making longer games, or was there a deeper idea behind it?
No, I agree fully with Brian. I mean, you have a story. I mean, one of the primary features of most adventure games is that they have a story, and you tell the story. And when the story is over, the game should be over, and the story can be 3 sentences, or it can be a novel. And however it works out, it reminds me of a story my dad told me about George Bernard Shaw, where someone came up to him at a party. I don't know if this is true or not. Someone came up to him at a party and said, "Mr. Shaw, how long should a novel be?" And he said, "There's no correct answer to that. It's as long as you need it to be." And the guy pushed him and said, "Well, no, just give me an idea how long it should be." And Shaw, just to shut him up, said, "All right, it should be 4 chapters." And the guy said, "Oh, I'm done. The story.
Way to go about it.
When we went to CDs, all that extra length was taken up with graphics. It had nothing to do with the length of the playing experience, I don't think.
Right.
So I'm happy to say that most of the games that I've played, like Serena,
which is downloadable and waiting for Serena.com.
Yeah. They were as long as they needed to be, and I don't remember playing one where I thought that wasn't short enough or that was too long because of the story. It might have seemed too long to me because it was an arduous game to get through.
Something that I'm thinking of, because you mentioned Jane earlier, and now we're talking about multiple CDs as opposed to just one CD. But one case where I thought they could have put a bit more in that game was Gabriel Knight 2, which, if you've read the novel, has quite a lot of backstory that isn't actually brought up in the game. It's well worth tracking down. I think Jane has just put out an ebook of it. Maybe it's exclusive to people who backed her and Robert's Kickstarter, but it's well worth seeking out. It's actually a great novel in its own right, and it brings up a lot of stuff that was cut from the game. There are very valid reasons.
Sorry, with Gabriel Knight 2, it's actually common knowledge that there was supposed to be more than 6 chapters. There's supposed to be this huge bit in between chapter 5 and 6 where you're supposed to wander around as Ludwig, hiding all this shit in the walls and such. But instead, I don't know if they just ran out of money or time, or they just didn't give a fuck, or it had to fit on 6 CDs or some shit like that. But from chapter 5 to 6, it just goes, and right, we're back in Rittersburg, and we're just going to explain everything in a 20-minute cutscene. Fuck you. On with the game.
We've just built an opera house over the span of 2 days.
I think Gabriel Knight 2 is a good example for this conversation, too, for this topic, because it has such a satisfying lead up to the very end of the game. And then you have this stupid puzzle where you have to run around through this maze.
Oh god, the werewolf.
Gearing up for the absolute perfect ending with minimal frustration, and then you're subjected to this really obnoxious thing. And I don't know why. That's just to pad out the game or to justify it as a game and not an interactive movie or something.
Well, it is kind of exciting, but I've always, and I mean always, used to walk, and I played Gabriel Knight 2 many times, but I've always used to walk through for the last section of the game, that arcade sequence where you're as a werewolf running. Well, never beat that on my own.
It's unnecessary.
Sorry.
I want to point out about the ebook. I think it's for CSG members only because I backed the level where I got it. As far as I know, it's for backers only. And I did read the novel, and it's definitely a lot different from, well, it does have a lot more to it than the game does.
Something that is very apparent is thanks to a good friend, a mutual friend of some of us, Josh Henry, I was fortunate enough to actually get both novels in paperback. And something that is very apparent when you read the first novel is how well the game told its story. To take Josh's words. Here's a story that never outstayed its welcome, because the story is so well told in the game that the novel actually struggles to come up with reasons for Gabriel to act as he does, because that was something you did. Whereas in Gabriel Knight 2, you have all this extra material because they'd moved to an era where either the technology wasn't quite there, maybe it ran out of budget, maybe they just didn't want to spend the time on it.
That's an interesting point. The first novel reads like a walkthrough.
It does. And there are times where, there are scenes in the first novel where Gabriel is just lying down in the park on the grass and something just suddenly occurs to him. And that was where you, the player, would obviously, have hit the map and just gone somewhere and, I don't know.
And then there's that chapter where he just walks over to a public phone booth and just calls the Sierra hint line, which is this is a really awkward scene.
There is actually a glaring omission from the novel of Gabriel Knight 1, and that is when Gabriel is pretending to be a priest and he's in Madame Cazanu's house, he doesn't say, "Oh, bless us, Wilbur." That's like the best line from the game. They took it out in the book.
They changed the name of his grandmother, too, from Rebecca to, Esther or something,
really?
I think.
I only knew her as grandma.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, do you mean like Jane and the voices in her head? Or
Yeah, sure.
Tell me something about Granddaddy. Anyway, moving on to
yeah,
designers,
I can tell Jacob's getting bored, so we might might as well ask him about
let's ask Jacob before he nuts off, because he's on the other side of the Earth and all that. So
on the surface
Jacob,
of the sun.
We've obviously moved a bit past just length, but rewinding it a bit, what do you make of game length? When is a game too long? When is a game too short? Or when is it just right?
And why does your game not go on forever?
Can you ask me why you're rubbing your nipples? That question again, please.
No.
No. I believe the game should be as long as possible, and you have to pay per click microtransactions.
Get out!
If I can interrupt Jacob real quick, I just learned that that's actually what Phoenix is doing with the Gabriel Knight remake.
Oh, really?
Yeah, day 1 is free, and you have to pay for each successive day.
Oh, God.
Just on the mobile that
On the
I
iPad
think
and
it's
Android.
just
Sorry,
Yeah,
we're
just mobile.
obviously
Just the
we're
mobile.
obviously a little bit incapacitated here, because Serena, you're still a social media consultant with Phoenix, aren't you?
I haven't done anything with them for a few months, but I have been
But do you,
keeping
but
up
do you
with.
still you still carry
Yes.
the time?
And
You know
they
what-
meant to
what
talk to you
actually
about that.
Apparently, I'm the co-host of Backseat Designers. But speaking of actual work done, so
We
I'm
are
not-
both
I'm not-
co-hosts.
I'm not going to use that. I'm not going to use that word
I'm not
again.
going to use your inferiority complex to bolster my ego.
As far as I know, I'm still an intern, but I haven't done anything recently.
Well, that is what an intern does, isn't it?
Is it okay, even though I love Cesar Bitter or whatever his name is? Sorry, I can't pronounce his name. I love Cesar. I love all the Phoenix guys. But Gabriel Knight 20 sucks ass.
They
I'm
have
sorry.
made some wrong moves, and I think
There's
they're.
There's
I
plenty
think
of them.
the problem is, in defense of Phoenix, they're on a learning curve, but as an attack on them, and I'm trying to put this as diplomatically as I can, maybe a remake of one of the most beloved adventure games of all time is not the best place to go through that learning curve.
You're right. But also to bring this back on topic, it's actually very relevant to topic because, as you say, the first Gabriel Knight game has perfect length. It is perfect from start to finish. I will subscribe to that. I will sign on the dotted line, and then you go and make 20, which adds a lot of padding that makes you not want to go to this. And Phoenix are not alone on this. Broken Sword, the director Scott, can go lick my ass.
Well, it can't literally. It is a game.
I've got a Wiimote. I've got a Wii.
I have problems.
You gotta just
I have
find
problems
some games
how
that
a
will.
digital
You have the
download
tongue
can do
controller?
Yeah, it's an add-on. You never got that?
that. I have problems seeing how a digital download can lick your ass. What do I know? I'm a guy sitting here.
I've got it in the box.
Come on, man.
Well,
Jake,
that's more an issue for the programmers.
Okay.
Jacob, did we cover everything you wanted to say, or is there
No, I
more points after this staggering revelation?
Nah, I did have an actual opinion on it other than pay-per-click. I reckon it should be, like everyone said, it should be like it needs to tell the story. It should just fulfill what it needs to do. But for adventure games specifically, at least now to everyone's what's the word for it? I'm completely blanking out at this time of night.
Well, I can't blame
Concentration.
you.
Dismay?
Most people blank out when faced with the
Erects?
side of this.
Watermelon?
Girth?
But
Member
Tarantula?
testicles.
Eggplant.
Ken sent me?
Can't say.
the idea is basically
Cubic. Smegma.
yes, smegma was the word. Everyone is just eating smegma, and that's the problem in the adventure game industry. I believe we should be tweeting this no smegma for adventure games.
Dude has a point.
Yeah, seriously, I think specifically adventure games should be relatively short because let's be honest, adventure games don't have like the most groundbreaking gameplay, and if you're playing like 100 hours or like whatever of this like same kind of gameplay, I think it would get pretty boring. It should be like this nice little package that you get, which is like super refined, like something like 7 hours or something like that.
That is actually
and there you go.
We're probably gonna get into that a few times later on, because it's something we've been discussing as well on the show. Sometimes you just get, there's a ton of stuff out there that's just point and click. Basically you just use mechanics from the early 90s, and you do so often to gratuitous effect. But why?
Therein lies a point, actually, because at some point you're supposed to not think that you're actually playing a game. The mechanics should just become second nature, and you're just experiencing the story. To that effect, just to wrap this up, Jacob, how long is Paradigm actually, and how long was it envisioned? Did you over ambitiously write a long design document, or is it just sort of click, click, click on point? I could ask Francisco the same, really.
Yeah, because Francisco hasn't been asked yet, so don't wrap this up until we ask Francisco. Francisco, in your Cedric voice, game length.
No, wait, I want to hear Jacob's answer.
Paradigm is probably going to be like, I'm probably going to say it's going to be like 7 to 8 hours.
I hate when people do that. Sorry, Jacob. I just hate when people put hours on a game.
You want to hear Jacob's answer?
But that's what you asked, though.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. My apologies. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. I mean, then how would you quantify game length, though?
There is no way to quantify game length.
Then why'd you ask me the question? Do you want to fight me?
Okay, no.
Oh, snap!
Oh dear! I've committed a faux pas. I'm very sorry. No, the question was, did you over ambitiously write a long design document, or is it just completely on point?
I purposely kept it the original idea was like ridiculously huge. It was like 4 acts. Had an insane overarching story, and then I was like, oh wait, I'm just one person. I can't do this at all. So basically what I've decided was to have these set amount of, I have 18 scenes or something like that, 17 scenes, but my aim was I'll make these insanely polished and make them really enjoyable to be in, rather than just an extra 10 rooms of just padding of you just walking through this and there's one object to interact with.
Grim Fandango.
But yeah, anyway, basically, but again, it depends what game it is.
Thank you for your coherent answer to my incoherent question. Sorry, I can't even talk anymore.
I think we just got time for Francisco before we wrap this topic up. But remember, Cedric voice, please.
No, that's later. But I do want to. I have a special message for trolls, and that's.
Oh God.
Got it for 99 cents. Best eBay deal I've ever made.
Oh God!
Anyway,
it hurts. Oh.
Yeah. I think. I tend to think that it's quality over quantity, to use a trite phrase. I think that if you get a really good experience from playing an adventure game, it really doesn't matter how long it takes. I mean, obviously, people expect, especially if you're paying for a game, that you're going to get your money's worth, quote unquote. Oh, look, a bird.
There's
but yeah, that's actually one of the things that I struggle with the most as a designer, that disparity between my design document and how long the game actually ends up becoming. Usually I write a lot, and then when I finish getting a clear idea of what the game is going to be...
Sorry, Francisco, I'm just going to have the luck to see on Brian here.
It's fine, I like the bird.
Sorry about disturbing your train of thought.
What are you doing with that bird?
What bird?
I just want to see in the next 5 minutes the bird just sort of pecking Brian in the ear.
Whoa, watch out, Brian! It's a poisonous snake!
Someone had to.
Anyway, thank you, Francisco.
Well, no, just basically, yeah, my games always end up being a lot shorter than my design documents, and that's always a point of frustration because I don't want to pad things out, but at the same time, I'm like, this seemed like it was going to be so long, and I can finish it in like 2 hours. I wanted it to be 5 or 7 or whatever, so... But yeah, ultimately, I think you have short and sweet games like Full Throttle that you can finish in 2 hours. I mean, most of the classic Sierra games you can finish if you know what you're doing. You can finish them in a couple of hours. I mean,
if not less. I mean, the first stage like less than an hour. Probably.
Exactly. Hey, with Sierra, if you know what you're doing, you can design them in a couple of hours.
Burn.
I won't argue that. But
I kind of think Full Throttle is a good example of this because it was a game that also had a bunch of content cut out, but kind of all that remains is like this, a lot of really solid, pertinent, relevant, exciting stuff.
Super polished, and I will confess, I love the Demolition Derby. You can all hate me now.
I hate you.
Okay, cool.
Well, I thought the air was already pretty clear on that subject. So anyway, we're probably going to move on to the next topic. The conclusion here seems to be, as usual, that size doesn't matter. It's how you use it. Anyway, next topic that we brought up on the show was 3D in adventure games. Not the Sierra 3D. Ooh, King's Quest. It's 3D. But as the genre moved on to 3D,
the shower,
and what we got later. No, not the shower. The genre. It's
the
French.
genre.
Yeah, it's French, and I'm drunk. Anyway, 3D as in polygons and voxels and shit. Let me pick a random person here. I think Francisco got the ass end of the deal during the last topic. So, Francisco, 3D in adventure games. Most of what you do is 2D. So, what do you make of 3D? Nothing, apparently. Well, moving on.
No, but
I can't hear him. It's great.
He's talking.
I think it's better this way.
Oh.
Oh my, yes! That's such a good opinion. I'm really surprised that you.
This is what you get for doing the Cedric voice.
Really, people listening to the audio version of this broadcast are really getting shafted because
Francisco Gonzalez is miming, and he's very passionate about it, but we cannot actually hear him.
And also, dancing around
3 words. Is it the name of a book?
Francisco, if you move your mouth, we can hear you now.
Okay, good.
If you move your lips very obviously, you might be able to make something out. But
French face just looks like a Play-Doh.
I was trying.
Sorry.
No, my microphone's really stupid, and if the USB cable moves like 2 centimeters, it unplugs and whatever. I was going to say
it does matter.
Yeah, it does. I do it. I only do 2D, so I hate 3D. I have very
loser.
I know, right? I have very little experience with 3D modeling. I've done pretty much none, and yeah, I mean, if you want to use 3D in your adventure games, go for it. But I don't see myself doing it anytime soon.
So speaking as a player rather than a designer who's not used to it, what do you think of it?
Oh, I mean, I think it's fine. I like all the Telltale games, and I like I'm one of the few people I think that actually like Gabriel Knight 3. Even though I'll admit the 3D has not aged well, but I did like the free roam camera and being able to like look at things and explore things and stuff.
Yeah, that was a very interesting idea, actually. That you're not.
It was interesting, and I don't care for it myself, but it was an interesting spin on 3D, definitely.
Yeah, but what do you think like of the Tex Murphy games or Normality, which I'm currently playing on my own and such? First-person adventuring. Isn't that the kind of like the way to go? The kind of way to bridge things between us classic farts who just sit around and watch 320 by 200 pixels all the time, and modern audiences.
I guess because if you think about it, like. Third-person adventure games where you pretty much just click and watch your little 2D character walk across the screen, That's like the most boring thing ever, except there's something about it that we as adventure game players just accept as like the norm of the genre. Like, I like it for some weird reason because, you know, I'm
Me
just
too.
a weirdo who likes playing adventure games with people walking. But yeah, like, I just actually played Under a Killing Moon for the first time a few weeks ago, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty cool way of doing things. I mean, it also hasn't aged very well, so the giant blocky pixels make it a little difficult to look under desks to find tiny little keys and things like that. But I mean, it's whatever. To bring up Dreamfall Chapters again, there's as a negative point. The problem I find with Dreamfall Chapters is that the maps are so big and there's no fast travel that it basically becomes a pixel hunt. And when it's a pixel hunt where you pretty much just have to run around this giant open world environment, it just makes it a little bit more frustrating. So I mean, yeah, I like the idea of first-person 3D if it's done well, but it's kind of difficult to do it well, I find.
Have you ever played what was the precursor to Amnesia? Fred, you know this. What was it called?
It was called Penumbra, I think.
Penumbra, that's the one.
No, I haven't played any of those games.
Where you sort of have the Half-Life kind of physics engine thing, but it's also an adventure game, and when you walk up to shit, you can open it and pick stuff out, and then there's Gone Home. I had to bring up Gone Home.
Yeah,
Hi, Brian.
Definitely, yeah.
Which is still first person, but it's also an adventure game. You still walk around and inspect shit, and I kind of like the immersion of 3D first person adventure games.
Yeah, I really like the Sherlock Holmes games, the Frogwares Sherlock Holmes games. Used to be. Yeah, I mean, if you play them now, the most recent ones they switched to third person, but you can still play them in first person, and it's still cool. I mean, all the design flaws that those games have aside, it's still cool to be able to look down at a crime scene and use a tape measure to measure footprints and stuff in first person.
Incidentally, on that subject, and this is something you guys should search out, there are these great videos on YouTube of various kinds of game glitches, and there was one particular glitch in the Sherlock Holmes series, which is that Watson never walks, he just insta-teleports. So, you're looking at one thing as Sherlock Holmes, then you turn around, Watson's there, except 2 seconds ago he was way over there in the other end of the room. So it's just this creepy game. Hello, Sherlock, what you found out, mate?
They sadly fixed that in the later games, but yeah, I actually made one of those videos myself.
Again.
It is so fucking creepy because he's just everywhere you go.
But I suppose the big question is, this is what we talked about in the episode anyway, was that did 3D kill adventure games, or is it kind of this...
did 3D kill the adventure game star?
Yeah, but is this... should adventure games just embrace 3D now that we actually have 3D that's worth playing, or is it all going to be Mask of Eternity? Turning the mic over to Mr. Mandel, who apparently has a...
I think we should write Josh's wife and tell her to call 911 at this point.
Dude's hyperventilating at this point. No, actually, Josh, you were you were not at Sierra when they went full 3D, but you were... Oh, God. Dear God, what just happened? Anyway, trying to recover. You were not at Sierra when they went full 3D, but with Mask of Eternity and Quest for Glory 5, was it? What did you make of this whole transition to like Simon the Sorcerer 3D, and what did you make of all that bullcrap?
I didn't think it worked well for any of the games that I played at the time. It was a distraction. It was clunky. And it didn't have any style. With 2D, you can pick a definite art style. Style came much later to 3D, but for a while, the only style that they tried for was realism, and I found that dull and not very moody. Now, of course, it should all be in cyan and orange. but I don't care for it. I don't need it. I don't like it. It hasn't reached the point technologically yet where I find it advantageous. I'd rather play a 2D adventure game any day.
There you go. That's one of the first like in cement kind of opinions we've had on the show so far. Up until this point, it's been kind of I can sort of see, but then the bombshell comes. Boom.
I'm so sorry.
Well, and trolls come on. In all fairness, I've had plenty of in cement opinions. You just choose to disregard them.
I'm not listening to a fucking word you're saying, dude.
Max, come over here. I want to talk to you.
No.
Patient, take the wife and your kid. Just don't retire from the MFP. All right? Yeah. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? It's the Jews' fault. Get the fuck out of here, Mel Gibson. God.
All right. I'm just gonna.
Sorry about that.
And
you made Jacob leave.
And I was just gonna turn the mic over to him. Okay.
Oh, this is what happens when you insult the first movie of its kind that was made in Australia. Oh, there he is again. Hey,
were
Jacob,
you insulting Mad Max?
Yeah, I love Mad Max dearly. I'm just getting a Fifi McAfee vibe out of my outfit here.
Oh,
why don't you just take a little bit? I don't know why he's redneck, but I can't because I can't do Australian. Why don't you just take a little vacation, Max? Get away from it. Have your wife run over by the tow car.
Anyway, that's actually not too bad. I've heard worse.
In the last 5 minutes, that should have been the first 5 minutes of it.
You're not Australian. Really, you're Australian. Like you're walking sucks.
My walking does not suck.
Your walking
sucks.
I want to hear your walking.
My walking does not suck, contrary to what Trolls thinks.
Can you do the opening from Ripper, which is of course Christopher Walken's
I don't actually think I've played it, so no. So I can't.
All right. While you think of a Walken quote, can I just ask Jacob? You're doing a fabulous new adventure. It's in 2D. It's in high res. Why not 3D?
I would love to do 3D, but it's not like I come back from an illustrator background, so that was kind of obviously a natural progression into 2D. I would love to do a 3D game there. Like, I think there's like so much untapped potential in that kind of stuff, and especially even VR. A lot of people say VR as a gimmick, but I think there could be some amazing like adventure game experiences with VR, especially with like immersion and that kind of stuff.
So taking your wild dreams and running with them. Sorry if I may. What do you think 3D could contribute to Paradigm, and how would you go about using it in a way that's different? Because and I get where you and Francisco are coming from. There is a lot of untapped potential because ever since Grim Fandango came out with its tank controls, it's not like we've ever really tapped into different ways of doing it. We've just kind of assumed, well, this is a 3D adventure game. So how would you go about doing it if you had the means to it?
Ooh, I mean, like, obviously, looking at my work, I love like surrealist and absurdist work. I'd probably go in a similar way, like Stanley Parable went around with it. How they were just like absolutely ridiculous with it.
Good one.
Yeah, definitely.
But I feel there could be just like. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but there's something like you could implement like body interactions, and because you could reuse a lot of assets, you could do some like crazy stuff.
I would like to implement some body interaction myself.
Ouch.
Whoa.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I'm gone. Sorry.
Yeah, like you could just connect a controller up to your nipples, and that would just be the whole game.
Well, it's funny you should mention it, because off-screen all the while I have been
twiddling your knobs.
Implementing a controller onto my nipples.
That came out wrong.
Do you just have alligator clips on there? It's fine.
It's a shame. I'm turning and I'm turning, but they're bringing the FM band down over here, so I'm not really hitting anything.
Oh, the Wi-Fi just turned off. Oh my God.
Maybe I can hit Radio Luxembourg if I try over here. No.
So where does the headphone
classical music again?
Moving hastily on. Thank you for a coherent answer to an incoherent question. Serena, you've played a number of adventure games. You played very, very many, and demos, and kickstarted, and being in the kickstart sort of scene, sort of sphere, you must be aware of many, sort of experimental kind of games, like people who are trying to do something absolutely new and fabulous, even with possibly 3D. I hope you're going to tell us about that.
Actually,
okay.
Actually, a lot of the adventure games have been either 2D or 2.5D. I haven't really seen many true 3D games running through Kickstarter.
Really?
I'd probably say Dreamfall Chapters would be one of them.
Jacob is
doing?
holding on. I believe it's an old Mac, isn't it? Actually, my big sister had one of those, way back in like the early '90s. It's not happy. It is in a state of error. Steve Jobs' ghost is about to show up at your house and kick your ass.
Actually,
don't throw jazz in you, dickhead.
Let's let Serena finish, and then we can get back to Jacob.
I'd say probably
I apologize.
games like Armor Krog or Night in the Ghost Lights, which uses stop motion. Stacey Davidson, Jack Houston, I believe is using stop motion as well. So that's a pretty popular alternative to 3D that I'm actually looking forward to seeing more of.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see Armor Krog as well, and definitely Jack Houston. But it is true what Jacob and Francisco is saying, that 3D modeling is intensive, so there is always an alternative where you kind of build it physically if you're talented like Stacey Davidson and Dr. Nabel obviously are.
Did you just say fistically?
No, that was wishful thinking on your part, my friend. I said physically.
Okay, all right. But I think the question we're all skirting around is: Did 3D, the advent of 3D in the late '90s, kill adventure games? Serena.
I don't think so. I mean, some of the games are less than stellar, but overall, I don't think 3D killed the adventure game.
No, okay. Brian?
No, I don't think 3D killed adventure games. I think it was incidental. Like, I think 3D is just yet another medium for us to hone. I mean, at first we had text adventures that had no graphics whatsoever, and then we had, so-called 3D adventures, which were in fact like the 2D point-and-click kind of adventures. And I'm sure a lot of people said that those killed text adventures. Well, maybe they did. And then there are people that said that like a text parser that pauses the screen is inferior to the text parser where you type and it doesn't pause the game. And then we had point and click, and people said that the text parser was better than point and click. So 3D is just yet another opportunity.
But it is an interesting question because when Simon the Sorcerer 3D came out, this is my favorite example, they had actually built, I don't know, was it 60 or 70% of the game in 2D with gorgeous SVGA graphics, and the entire publishing sphere of adventure games, or publishers in general, just said, well, you can't actually publish a 2D adventure game anymore. And this was in the late 90s, 97, 98, something like that. And okay, we have to rebuild the entire game in 3D because we cannot get a game published that isn't 3D. So, as sort of in a sense, you could say that it did because adventure games had to adapt out of their primordial soup, as it were, and adapt to a medium that they weren't comfortable with, that was, alienating to both the people who loved 3D action games and adventure game players.
Well, wasn't that basically the same story as Space Quest 4? which was originally made with a text parser.
Good point. Good point. But that's not nearly a huge step as going from 2D to 3D.
I would disagree because I mean, a text parser, you have how many verbs?
Yeah, I would disagree as well.
A click parser, you have how many verbs versus a text parser, where you can type in pee and poo, which is what's important in these games.
It is most definitely a huge step. And one quote I recall of Scott Murphy's is that, well, could you fuck the dead body in Space Quest 4? No, you absolutely could not. You were limited to those, 5 or 6 icons. Whereas in Space Quest 2, you could do what you wanted. Obviously parsers weren't always implemented well, so it was an idea that worked best in theory as opposed to practice. But if well implemented, here was an interface that offered you the chance to tap directly into the game world and just literally literally fuck with it. Commit as much necrophilia as today. In today's world, that would have been a Steam achievement, and Anita Sarkeesian would have been on our asses about it.
And thanks to Josh Mandel, you can actually lick the dead sequel policeman in Space Quest 4, but you can't fuck him. Fred, why don't you take point while I just head out for a brief moment?
It's not quite the same as loving coitus. No, sorry, Josh, but it's
close enough.
It's not my fault. It's missing third base.
By the way, that quote when you actually do try to lick the dead policeman, where Gary just goes, "I know sick, and this is going way beyond simple dementia." I love that. That's a great line.
Yeah, and speaking of you, Josh, we're popping you the big question now. You've already mentioned that you disliked 3D when it first came out, but do you think it actually killed adventure games?
No. You wanted more? Stretch?
I wanted just a tiny bit more.
No, I think the Sierra Board of Directors killed the adventure game. Frankly.
Sick burn. And I'm inclined to agree with you.
Can I piggyback on that with a somewhat controversial opinion?
Yes, please do. We are all about controversial opinions here.
I don't think anything killed adventure games. They never died. They just went away. And people who say that adventure games died, I can't agree with that.
Yeah, well,
they've always been around in some way, shape, or form. They just haven't been as prevalent.
To quote Frank Zappa, jazz isn't dead, it just smells funny. Some things are old. And some, in my opinion, and this is an opinion I brought forward on the show a number of times, some people are still very, very sad, apparently, that we aren't still just piggybacking onto what was done in the early 90s, because supposedly that was where we reached the pinnacle. But I don't see any reason as to why we shouldn't move beyond that. There is never going to be another Gabriel Knight 1 ever. It's perfect. Let it rest, let it stand alone, and let's see what else we can do.
Gabriel Knight 1, to be more controversial, is not perfect, but
out.
It has flaws, but it was perfect for its time.
It does,
and it still holds up, I feel. But I do agree with you wholeheartedly that people who look to the past to design adventure games. This is a bad topic because I could talk about this for hours.
It's a very relevant topic, I think. So please go on.
I just think that looking back to those old games and sticking to those design philosophies is not necessarily a good idea, because many other genres have evolved. You look at all the kickstarted RPG games that have been funded in the last couple of years or so, and they've been universally acclaimed. And most of the, if not all of the kickstarted adventure games have been either received very lukewarmly or very poorly, and you kind of have to question if it's because the way they're designed is still sticking to these old tropes and ideas rather than trying different things.
I do agree with you because and I just want to get this out there before we move on to the next topic, but it is very worth remembering that we I mean, all of us adventure games fans today worship what Sierra and LucasArts did way back when, but they were never static entities. I mean, I have said this many times. If Ken Williams was able to go 1080p way back when they did the first King's Quest, he would totally have done it. You know, he didn't necessarily care whether it suited the game. You know, work the kinks out as we go along. Sierra and LucasArts were very much about, we have these great tools at our disposal. What can we do with them?
They were trailblazers. They
were
trailblazers.
And what can we do with the tools that are over here that are about to become the next big thing? I mean,
and instead we are kind of. I mean, I'm like an adventure game purist, as has been clearly foretold by prophecies. But I'm absolutely of the sense that if you harness today's technology in the right way, you can still create adventure games that are not made by David Cage.
On Home,
for instance.
Yeah. And for the record, Fred, Gabriel Knight 1 is one of my favorite adventure games.
I do get your point that it's not flawless, but if we're talking flawless, I can think of like one or two games.
I would say none are flawless.
I would say Day of the Tentacle, if we're talking flawless games.
I would say Day of the Tentacle.
Yeah.
That is a pretty good game.
I think it's great, but it's not flawless. I played for it recently.
Ooh.
I'm gonna say it.
And also, when we were talking about perfect length of adventure games, I never really got to interject. Beneath the Steel Sky has the perfect length, the perfect build-up, in my mind at least. I'm just putting that out there. Next topic.
Yeah, next topic was a bit more about just basically low-level fun, because the next topic we covered was Easter eggs, stuff that's hidden away.
Ooh,
and I'm gonna jump the gun on this and start with Josh, because Josh, you are notorious for doing all these, wonderful hidden interactions in Eurogames. So, what do you make of Easter eggs? What's so damn fun about them?
I guess it's the same sort of thing that used to be taken for granted in the age of the text adventure. That when you would explore, if you were diligent, you would get little nuggets of information or fluff that that cued you into the fact that for a moment there, you and the designer were seeing exactly eye to eye in some way, and it's a cool little feeling. And now that the parser's gone, it's much harder to get that feeling, and Easter eggs are a means of reestablishing where you get to share a private little wink with the designer, and I think people really enjoy that, and it used to be a lot more common. I mean, you didn't really find Easter eggs in Infocom games. You didn't need them. You just had actions and responses that were maybe a little more or less obscure, and now limited to the icons. There's a much harder line between what's an obscure response and what's a common response. Everyone gets all the common responses, and you find some way to get an obscure response, and it gives you a little thrill.
And we'll have to bring up. I do have to bring up Lisa Shoot Larry 7 at this point, because for my money, first of all, it's the greatest adventure game UI ever invented. I mean, you have the look, talk, and whatever fuck with kind of in a Lisa Shoot Larry game. Hey, but you also have the parser, so you can key in your own verb and such. And that mechanism was used very, very brilliantly, I thought, to produce Easter eggs, and there are a multitude of Easter eggs in Leisure Suit Larry 7.
Yeah, baby.
Okay. Not what I was thinking of, but anyway. What you're talking about with reestablishing a connection between the designer and the player in sort of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of fashion, that really resonates. Actually, that's a very, very good way of putting it. It's kind of like you're sharing a moment with the designer himself or herself.
Right.
as opposed to trying to solve the game and just get inside the designer's head and trying to figure out what the fuck does this person want from me and such. I really like that. Yeah, on to the next one. Sorry.
Actually, one thing I want to ask Josh, it's Space Quest 6 has some pretty notorious Easter eggs, like Circuit Sydney's head following you around on the birthday of. Trolls, you have to fill me in. You're the Space Quest historian. Whose birthday is it?
That would be Michael Hutchins, the graphic designer, and I'm pretty sure William Shockley put that in, and not Josh.
But did you implement any of those hidden interactions in that game? If you didn't implement that, then did you implement other ones?
There was one or two in Freddy Farkas. I didn't do any in Space Quest 6. I mean, I was just working on the basic game when I left, and the Easter eggs were kind of far off. Although, for instance, I think we did plan out the rotating marquees somewhat out in front of the old movie theater.
Oh yeah, I love that.
And there's a nice Easter egg that I think Bill Shockley put in for me. I guess if you do the right thing, you get a little farewell thing to me. I
There's
don't
a
know.
nice photo of you shaking hands with Bill Shockley.
Yeah.
Shuttle.
That's
If you press the keys in a certain way, then it pops up Josh Mandel, and it just goes almost like an obituary. It goes when you joined the company, when you ended the company.
Oh,
like 2
that's
years.
nice.
Yeah.
But I put in a couple in Freddy Farkas, and actually, maybe not coincidentally, Bill Shockley played a big role in the ones in Freddy Farkas too. Like if you use the shovel on the floorboards inside the pharmacy, you get a little reference to, I think it's the Evil Dead. I think the Evil Dead had just come out fairly recently.
Yeah. With the monster popping out of the floorboards and
yeah.
That's
but I've always loved to put in Easter eggs, but I don't remember me specifically putting in any in Space Quest 6.
Usually it is programmers who put in Easter eggs just to kill time or something. Am I right?
That is true. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's just that it usually requires the at least assistance of an artist or an animator, so it's not something they can very easily do alone anymore. Although Circuit Sydney's head, if that was a separate sprite, I guess he could have done that without any animators.
It just detaches from his head and follows Roger around Adria.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to direct this question to our two game designers here, Francisco.
And actually, you might
Jacob.
want to take over because it's my turn to have a pee break now. So.
Okay, cool. I'm on point. I'm on point and game and willing and kind of naked. So, Jacob, in Paradigm, because you're doing Paradigm pretty much on your own, right? I mean, you're a designer, writer, programmer, and artist.
Yeah.
So are you not to spoil anything, obviously, but what's your take on Easter eggs, and are you putting any in your game?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's probably one of my favorite things, to be honest. Like in adventure games. It depends on your definition of Easter egg as well. Like there are obviously bits and pieces in the game which reference 2001 Space Odyssey, LucasArts games, and that kind of stuff.
Those I wouldn't call Easter eggs per se. They're more like references. But like you get teleported to some place that you weren't supposed. Like in Space Quest 4, if you key in the right time code, you end up in Ortega in Space Quest 3, and all this sort of jazz, like stuff you weren't supposed to see.
Okay. I don't think I've actually implemented anything. Or there's a few things here and there which kind of you have to. I mean, the main thing I like to do is really reward the player for exploration.
Yeah.
Which is a big part of Paradigm. So you don't what I hate most in adventure games is when you look at something and he'll be like, "It's a door," and you're like, "Why? Why do I want to play this game? Like, come on, man, just give me a little bit of something. Like,
Full Throttle really brought that to its logical conclusion, I think. You remember
really?
in Full Throttle when you would click on something and he'd go,
And also, that game had a kick icon, so you could just, like, I give a shit, just knock the fucker down. Like,
But that's so appropriate for that game, though, because that's his character. That he's just like, give a fuck. Like, if you got like a detective kind of character, and he's just like, it's a door. You're like, oh my god, Jesus.
Sorry, what kind of apart from references, what kind of Easter eggs would you maybe think of putting in Paradigm?
I don't know, man.
I mean, you've got the minigame, like what is it? The Thugs game. The what's it called?
Boosting Thugs.
I love that. Please do elucidate for people who don't know, because this is one of my favorite jokes in the game.
Boosting Thugs is like a parody game of like Streets of Rage. Basically, instead of using your fists, you boost thugs' self-esteem. So basically, you go up to a thug and then you be like, "Hey man, nice shirt," and then he'll reevaluate his life decisions and then become a model citizen.
It's so much fun.
I love it.
That is yeah. Sorry. It is so much fun, and it's done in this old school pixel art style. And Jacob's been tweeting and posting on his Tumblr like screenshots of boosting thugs. It's just hilarious.
I really like to make a full version of that. Yeah, I mean, actually, like mentioning that, I'll probably put in some things that would be a little bit hard to get to. I don't think I've actually done anything that's like really unobvious to get to. Most of the stuff is pretty accessible, so good idea.
Yeah, put in like a cheat code. Like if you enter in like a Paradigm is a toaster face or something, then everyone starts wearing pink shirts or takes off their shirt and wears fancy ties or something. Francisco, you and adventure games and Easter eggs, please do fill us in.
I like Easter eggs. I think that in this day and age, they've kind of been.
Oh my God, Francisco is the Easter Bunny.
What?
Sorry, do go on. That was just wishful thinking.
So anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I think that Easter eggs nowadays have been replaced with achievements, because like sometimes some games you get achievements. It's like, click on something 25 times and you get an achievement or whatever. Whereas in the old days that would have been some sort of Easter egg. I put in the most elaborate Easter egg I think I've ever put in one of my games was the old Ben Jordan series. In case number 5, it takes place in Japan, and you can go inside the hotel room bathroom, and there's one of those Japanese toilets that you squat over, and Ben kind of like makes this whole big deal about how he doesn't, or if you look at it, it's like, you have no idea how to use this thing. So there's a point later in the game where you get a basket full of flowers, and you're supposed to use the basket for a disguise. And the traditional way that you do it is you just click the hand icon on the basket and you remove the flowers. But if you go back to your hotel and you use the basket on the toilet to dump the flowers in, that activates part of the Easter egg. And if you get a full score, in addition to having done that, at the very end after the credits you get a little extra scene where Ben is like, all right, it's been 5 days, it's time to use this toilet. And he goes and he squats over it and proceeds to fall in. So, that's the most elaborate Easter egg I ever did in any of my games.
That's a good one.
That's a very good one.
I don't think anybody.
Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say in your defense, it is extremely elaborate.
Yeah, I don't think anybody found it out of like me telling a couple of people how to do it, and then.
And now it's out there for everyone.
Well, we did that on Valhalla Strikes Back, where we have a whole, we have two endings. We have
That one is elaborate.
the good one,
very
the
elaborate.
good one, and the bad one, and you can trigger a third surrealist ending if you pick up a piece of view shield glass that you find near the aluminum mallard wreck at the very beginning of the game and show it basically to everyone. Minus one or two character. I guess there's a bit of leeway, but only a tiny bit of leeway. But yeah, if you show that item to everyone, you can trigger a third ending, which to my knowledge no one ever found until we started telling people about it out of frustration, because we wanted people to find it.
I also, actually, now that you mentioned that about endings, I also had an alternate dog ending in Ben Jordan 8 as a homage to Silent Hill 2, where, yeah, if you find the dog key and then you also figure out the right place to find it, you get a little thing, and it turns out a little Shiba Inu was behind everything. So.
Well, that is cool. We do have to speed things along, I think, because we've already gone an hour and a half into it. So, Brian, Easter eggs, any salient points?
No, I don't have too much to say about Easter eggs. I'm not as big a fan of them as other people are. I was going to say exactly what Francisco said, which was that they'd kind of been superseded by achievements, which is not something that really excites me either. So, meh.
Okay, cool. Serena?
Well, I have to agree with Brian and Francisco. Most Easter eggs have actually been taken over by achievements. I mean, I'm an achievement whore. I love doing every little thing to get 100%, but knowing what's going to happen if you have the list of achievements, it kind of takes away from the whole experience. But overall, I like Easter eggs. I mean, I was alpha testing Quest for Infamy for Stephen Alexander. One of the first things I found was that Smeat can in the second act, I think. I was like, what the hell is this? It's like, what's this doing here? And so it's like, I talked to Steve, it's like, yeah, I put that in there as an Easter egg. It's like, it's supposed to be a reference to like spam or something. I don't know. I think it's like a SNL skit or something I've never seen. But yeah, just stumbling across Easter eggs are fun. But when you know where the Easter eggs are, it kind of takes away from the enjoyment of actually discovering them.
That's actually a very good point, because I was playing Gemini Rue from Wajidai. Hi, Dave. And I stumbled across an Easter egg that I didn't know was an Easter egg, and it was kind of jarring, because when you find an Easter egg, it's either because you really were looking for it, or you just stumble across it, and it just sort of appears to you in kind of this magical fashion and such. But in Gemini Rue, you can apparently come across 4 characters from Cowboy Bebop. And I came across one of these dudes, and he would just say the same line over and over again. And to be fair, I've watched Cowboy Bebop, I've watched the movie and such, but it's been a long time, and I didn't recognize the character at all. So it was just like, what the hell's this dude doing here, and why does he keep saying the same weird shit over and over again? And that was not a fun Easter egg, in my opinion. What strikes me as fun Easter eggs is like not an adventure game Easter egg, but like Rebel Assault 2, where you can turn off all the speech and just have this Mystery Science Theater like commentary going on as you're watching the FMV clips. That's a fun Easter egg.
Well, one very bad Easter egg was, bringing it back to Phoenix. Sorry, guys. But the Silver Lining had the most egregious example I can ever think of, and we parodied it on Valhalla Strikes Back because if you use the hand icon on some seawater near the very beginning of the game, the narrator will just go on and on and on and on and on about King Graham not being able to carry water in his bare hands, and it's not fun. It's just a waste of fucking time. And the problem with this Easter egg is that you're trying as a player to do something that is not entirely illogical. I mean, here you are in a 3D adventure game. What if it let you do something that is possible to do in real life? Gasp, carry water around in your hands. It's something that's possible. So it's just not. Yeah, it's not a good Easter egg because it's triggered by something that's entirely possible in real life. Cue angry puffin walking across the screen.
Yeah, good Easter eggs should be like in Leisure Suit Larry 7, where there are a ton of Easter eggs. Most of those involve tits. And let's be fair, it's just
Well, tits are good. I mean, who's gonna complain about?
Yeah, who's gonna complain about tits? I mean, really. And I'm saying this as a feminist, but tits are awesome.
Yeah, I'm a major fan of mammalian protuberances.
There's something I never thought I'd hear.
Like your mammalian protuberances.
That is actually a Frank Zappa quote on a song about wet T-shirt contest. It's time to see some mammalian protuberances.
Worst pickup line ever.
Absolutely. Yeah, it hasn't worked for me either.
Anyway, next topic, Fred.
Interactive movies was the next topic. And we've already kind of been across, we'll try to keep it short, we've already been across 3D, but this was kind of like a phase where we were uncovering different mechanics and different periods of history of adventure games. And we've already kind of been there, we've talked about Gabriel Knight 2 and stuff. So, Brian, FMV games, what do you make of them in general? Good ones, bad ones, hit me.
Sucky ones.
Also, sorry to interrupt, I have to go.
Oh no!
Permanently.
No. And you just put on your fancy shirt too.
I know. I did it for you, so I could leave in beautiful clothing. But
well, it was an absolute pleasure having you here, and I'm sorry it dragged out to an extent where you had to leave midway. But it was absolutely great, and I definitely look forward to playing your game.
Oh, dude, Jacob, I'm so glad to have finally been able to talk to you. You're an absolute prodigy, and I sincerely love your game, your sense of humor, and I look very, very much forward to playing Paradigm. It is by far one of the funniest games I've ever played. It's just the depth.
Very much. Now you're putting these high standards on me. It's going to be a terrible game.
I have no doubt you're gonna knock this out of the park just because you're a very, very weird person, and I dearly, dearly look forward.
Thank you. I think.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing my head in a jar. You better do me justice.
I will. I'll be Thanks again so much for that as well.
Thank you for participating, Jacob.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Sorry that I wasn't that talkative because it's like late at night. But
no
if you
problem.
call me in the daytime, I'll be much more loud and talkative. But see you later, guys.
Have a good one, sir. Thank you again. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Good night, mate.
And off he goes.
Yeah. Interactive movies. Anyone other than Jacob? I think we were on Brian.
Yeah, Brian's turn.
All right. So, I mean, FMV has been misused a whole heck of a lot. I guess we're starting to see some interesting uses of it. Well, you got to bring up Her Story. Hopefully, you guys have played that game.
Thank you for the gift, by the way.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. It was.
I'm playing it.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's FMV is kind of a weird medium, I guess, because it's so linear and it just cannot be modified. So it takes some clever design to figure out ways of making it into like a dynamic thing. And like Her Story in particular, which is a game where you invoke different video clips by searching for text that was spoken in the dialogue for that little clip. Like that's a kind of a neat way to ensure that different people playing the game will see different parts in a different order. I mean, I kind of think that now that we're seeing this kind of resurgence of choose your own adventure style games with engines like Twine, maybe we'll start to see more FMV stuff, because maybe it's sufficient to just have a this or that kind of a prompt to the player just to give them some minimum kind of agency before feeding them some more story. That's what we're doing with text.
Yeah, and I dearly hope so, because the conclusion that Fred and I came to in the episode when we discussed FMV games was that this is a medium that was, let's say, kind of abused in the late 90s. We didn't have the technology, we didn't have the we didn't have the means to make this as exciting as, say, a Hollywood movie, which was what everyone wanted to do in the 90s, but they just didn't have the means to do it. Christopher Walken notwithstanding. But now we've got mobile phones capable of shooting at 1080p, and doing an FMV game should not be that hard, really, and it's a great way to tell a story if you've got real actors acting out parts, like having real conversations instead of voice actors reading their lines separately over the course of several days and such. I really think it's a medium that sort of missed the boat.
Well, it might be, recapturing some glory that it never found with games like Her Story, which, as you both mentioned, tries to do something different with the medium. Josh, you must have some thoughts on this, because you were still with Sierra when they moved into FMV territory. So we've been over your thoughts on 3D, but what did you make of the whole interactive movie craze?
3D, like botany. No, sorry.
Yeah, 3D.
Well, when I was playing with it at Sierra, it was simplistic and low res and horrible, and I've never really revisited it or had a reason to. So I don't really have a strong opinion of it anymore, except to point out that what Trolls is saying about it's so accessible now with smartphones and 1080p and getting good actors and everything. That makes a great case for movies. It doesn't have anything to do with games.
No, but you could feasibly do an FMV game just with you and a bunch of friends and your smartphone, and just edit the fucking thing in Windows Movie Maker and shove it into AGS, and you'd be done. You'd have an FMV game.
Yes, you would.
It wouldn't be a good FMV game, but still.
This idea on YouTube, because YouTube has those annotations where you can have a clickable area on the screen. So I've seen some people record a 10-second video or something, and then the protagonist looks to the left and to the right. So you can click on the left or the right.
Wow! I had no idea someone did that. That's actually
I've seen that. I've seen that. It's really, really cool. There's this one where you're like in a park, and you're walking, and every time you click somewhere, it just loads a new YouTube clip. And you're supposed to escape from this part because apparently someone's trying to kill you or something. It's very, very interesting kind of an idea.
Wow, that's awesome.
Essentially, it's no more sophisticated than Dragon's Lair, but it has potential. Tools are in everybody's hands, so it's just a matter of time before someone does something good with it, I guess.
Which is a cool idea, by the way, doing kind of a Dragon's Lair kind of thing. Because a YouTube clip has a certain length, and then you can put in hotspots that only appear between this and this time code. So if you don't do something, then the rest of the clip is just you getting bludgeoned or something.
Yeah, well, it's better than Dragon's Lair technologically, certainly, and it speaks volumes about how far we've come in the medium of digital video. That when Dragon's Lair came out. Dragon's Lair is, as far as I know, basically a Laserdisc. It's a Laserdisc game, and there is an unwieldy medium. I have a Laserdisc collection, and I love him dearly, but it's the most unwieldy medium you could ever think of, and there's certainly no medium for games. Today, we certainly have way better ways to get digital video out there as something you can tell a story with. Definitely.
I'm going to put this question to Serena first, because Serena plays a lot of adventure games, and she's a very, very nice person. With FMV, FMV, let's all agree, kind of missed the boat in the late 90s. But with video technology being as readily available as it is today, and with digital distribution, sorry, slurring, do you see FMV as being a viable thing today in adventure games?
Yeah, if done right, it can be good. I mean, Tesla Effect, the Tex Murphy game that just came out. did a great job at FMV. I mean, I love the other Tex Murphy games, but Tesla Effect, I think, is the best of the series so far. And
Now that's a strong statement.
But some FMV can be crap if done wrong, but if done right, it's a wonderful medium for a video game.
And Brian, you and I have had some controversy over Tesla Effect. It's not the best text game in my opinion. That would be the Pandora Directive.
I agree.
But
believe it or not, I was actually going to hold up Tesla Effect as a great example of 3D engine exploration in an adventure game. I don't think that it did the best job of capitalizing on that, but it was beautiful and easy to move around and easy to interact with stuff. That has terrific potential. That plus
absolutely.
FMV could make a really powerful combination.
Well, in all fairness, I would say that the pitfalls that Tesla Effect falls into have nothing to do with the technology. You know, it's a matter of design. In my opinion, that's where the game falls short. It has some puzzles in some areas that are kind of like, you know, in my opinion, you just shouldn't go there. Whereas the technology feels really nice. It feels like the technology has finally caught up with what Access Interactive were trying to do way back when. You know, now they can actually do it. And I hope they get to make the sequel that they want to make, because there is some great potential there. You know, so fucking what if they don't hit it right off at the first try? I have a great feeling that if they do get the chance, we could be in for a more great text games.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say I hope so.
Yeah. Cool. Francisco, 2D pixel arty kind of guy. Where do you stand on the whole FMV thing?
Because you're an attractive man. You could be in an FMV game.
Especially with his shirt off. I mean, come on. And with a name like Francisco. I mean,
and the separate voice.
Is that a prerequisite? Do you have to be attractive to be in an FMV game? Because if that's the case, there was a lot of... Anyway.
You're a dead ringer. No.
The head is useless. Ha ha ha. Yeah. I'm not really a huge fan of FMV games, and I can't tell you why. I mean, I don't know. I really haven't played very many good ones. I liked Her Story a lot. Thank you, Brian. And Brian was like
gifted that to everyone.
Yeah, he was like the Her Story Santa Claus.
I bought it myself, and I'm extremely disappointed. Everyone got Her Story. I got a lump of coal.
Well,
that's how much I loved it. I just wanted to get people's opinions on it.
Cool.
It was so cheesy.
But I mean, I've actually been playing. I like to say under duress. Tender Loving Care.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Maybe by the same dudes who did the 11th Hour.
Well, but Rob Landeros anyway. Yeah, that game. I've been playing it with my girlfriend, and it's like, it's ridiculous. Yeah, I just talked about this on the Blue Cup Tools podcast this week's episode about how there's this twist of like they play it up as this ridiculous twist that you see coming from like the beginning of the game, and the game even asks you, did you see this coming? But yeah, so that's been an experience. And of course, seeing John Hurt with the '90s hair, being like, I'm John Hurt. That's not John Hurt at all. But anyway,
close enough.
Good Christopher Walken.
This is John Hurt.
At least it wasn't Christopher Walken. So yes, but anyway.
What do you mean it wasn't Christopher Walken?
That's his Walken, by the way. Isn't it terrible?
It sounds like Fred just pausing.
It's a fucking brilliant Christopher Walken.
It sounds more like William Shatner than Walken.
That's true. But all that aside, I've said for years that I always wanted to do a parody FMV game where you basically just because FMV games did this great thing where they, I guess, because they wanted to show off the technology, when people picked things up, they didn't just pick things up; they picked them up and they were like,
Yeah, yes, Gabriel Knight.
Yeah, and Gabriel Knight 2 had that great eyebrow waggle before every conversation. It was like, "Hey, Harry."
I love after every single line that is said in that game, there is like these 2 seconds of awkward silence, like.
Yeah. So I've always wanted to make a parody FMV game that capitalizes on that, where like you click on a door and it literally is a 10-minute video clip of the character just looking at the door and examining it and considering it and then finally going through it.
We've already hinted towards it, but one of my favorite moments in Gabriel Knight 2, bar none, is when you as Grace walk up to Werner Huber in the guest house in Rittersburg, and you ask him what Gabriel's case is about, and he goes, "All right, I tell you, werewolf." He's like standing there. Werewolf.
Werewolf.
Also,
and that is the moment where his face recoils and he goes, as if there was any doubt. I am nodding my head. It is genuinely about werewolves.
And Grace just goes like this for 30 seconds.
Yeah. I have to hail a cab and get the fuck out of here. This guy's gonna drag me into the back room and do God knows what.
Because he is German, you never know. Yeah. Also, Francisco, I am dead down for doing an FMV parody. I had an idea once of doing because I watch a lot of horror movies and I have a Netflix subscription and I watch a lot of those stupid ass found footage films that are not scary in the least. So my idea was to do found footage, the adventure game. And just lock myself in my university or something, and just run around and just scream at the camera and such.
Here is something you could do, because I remember seeing, and I don't know if it was intentional or if it was unintentional, but I remember seeing this thing on TV once with these. It was like this youth show with these women who were trying to do an erotic drama. And what had ostensibly happened was
what now?
What had ostensibly happened as they tried to film this was that whenever they weren't supposed to be filming, the camera was actually filming. So whenever they thought they were filming, they turned the camera off, and whenever they thought they had a shot in the can, they turned it on again. So what you got were all these interludes with these people directing each other on how to be erotic and how to be sensible and stuff. And you could make a pretty great found footage game with that.
Get in the vat. No, get in the vat with lard. Please, just roll around in it. We'll make something of it.
You don't see the actual conversation. You just see when it ended.
Sounds so dull. All right, next topic, I guess.
Yeah, next topic would be. This is gonna be awkward. It's about how awesome Josh Mandel is.
The answer is very.
So, Josh, how awesome are you on a scale from 1 to 10?
Can I just throw up instead?
Oh, do the thing
twice.
Only if you do the thing with the cards. Only if you do the thing with the cards.
He just did. Anyway, Josh is a very, very fantastic guy. He did some of my favorite games of all time. And also, one thing that he didn't have to do, but he does, is interact with the fan community and actually participate in projects like pro bono, no pay, just because he's awesome. And
in all fairness, maybe he's waiting out. Maybe he's still waiting for his first Space Quest 7 paycheck. I mean, you never know what they promised him.
I'm waiting for my first Leisure Suit Larry Reloaded paycheck.
Oh, good one.
I'm feeling tempted to just hit the stop broadcast button.
Shots fired. Take that, you bitches.
Ending. That was like a full clip.
Oh shit!
Wow.
Anyway,
I could make a really bad pun right now, but I'm not going to.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Please do.
No, because it's mean.
No, be mean. Be
I don't
mean.
care.
You've already prefaced it with a disclaimer, so you might as
I
well.
always do that. I was just gonna say there's no need to throw the line, but. I told you! I warned you!
Oh, God. All right. Just a quick run around the room. Your favorite game that Josh Mandel worked on, Fred?
Favorite game that Josh Mandel worked on? Well, I would say
Quick,
that
play something.
obviously the go-to answer would be Space Quest 6. But if I am going to, God help me, go in defense of Leisure Suit Larry Reloaded, I will say that the bits I enjoyed the most was where Josh added something to the game. You know, there are all these interactions that are brand new. Going up to the buffet and interacting with that, I thought was absolutely brilliant. And of course, this game has a dark backstory that we're not going into because I'm not a pallbearer.
I'll tell you, I want to tell you a funny story about that buffet.
Yeah, go ahead.
There was supposed to be an entire hidden object game. It was all going to be a parody of the Big Fish style hidden object horror games, and it was a whole separate thing. And I had put it in the design at the very beginning, and Infusion was like, "No problem. Oh, this sounds like fun. We're going to do this upright. It's going to have all the cliches from Big Fish and all the people that supply Big Fish." And then it was like the very last thing. They called me up and they said, "Oh, by the way, that whole big hidden object game parody, we can't do it."
Well, in all fairness, they had to make room for the 420 Easter egg because that was clearly more important.
Oh God! Oh God!
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like the Data Quarter comic that was supposed to be in Space Quest 6, but never quite made it in for some reason.
It's just so, and one thing that we dwelled on when we talked about you on this show was that it's awful because you're so used to this. You're so used to coming up with these great fucking ideas, and then like 2 days before a shipping date, you get a call saying, "Oh, by the way, this great thing you did, yeah, we're not putting it in."
Well, it's because I like, I come up with ideas and I don't have the producer filter on. If I had the producer filter on, I would cut that part of the design before I even suggested it to anyone.
I just love when Fred goes off the rails and just goes, fuck the fucking.
Yeah, fuck the producer filter. I mean, fuck Ken Williams' mustache. Fuck Paul Trow. I mean, these guys were. I say these guys. Ken Williams was obviously a trailblazer, but he made some mistakes, and it's something that people don't see today. I mean, there are all these fucking discussions going on the various Sierra groups on Facebook going, "Oh, if only Ken Williams had let the two guys from Andromeda Project, it would have been fucking great." But here's the thing, it fucking wouldn't, because these guys make ill judgment too.
Fred, go take your pills. Fred. Go drink some more scotch or something.
Oh my God!
No, it just riles me up because one thing our show is very much about is about the design perspective, and
bitching.
I admit
we're good at bitching.
Yeah, it is about bitching too, but it does piss me off when it basically, as a fan of adventure games, pisses me off when storytellers don't get to tell their story because of some financial bullshit. I don't see it as a valid reason. Trolls and I have had this discussion, a lot of times, and he's more of an idealist, and I'm more of a cynical realist. But I am frustrated with what is going on in games where great story elements will be cut out on a whim just because it doesn't fit into the spreadsheet, and it pisses me off because it's not fair. And I think you've probably
experienced that more.
Yeah,
than,
you've
most people.
if you haven't experienced it more than most, then certainly you have been more open about having experienced it than most.
Yeah, well, that's the difference. I can't keep a secret.
Which is good, and that is one of the reasons why we love you. Moving hastily on, Brian, favorite game that Josh worked on?
Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were the lead, if not only, writer for Jones in the Fast Lane.
I was the lead. I was Warren Schwader did a fair amount of the writing on that too.
Okay, I think I might, of all the games, that might be the one that I enjoyed the most, just because that was a game that was already fun on its own, but just all the little kind of color commentary and all the little jokes that are thrown in here and there, it just gives it all this charm, and like it has this right amount of snark and tone that are so appropriate for the type of game. So I appreciated that a lot. I thought that was a job very well done.
I love it.
And I've never played it, but I want to get in on that note that Brian is mentioning how you write all these exquisite little things that just flesh stuff. It fleshes stuff out, and you yourself say that you don't have the producer's perspective. Well, sincerely, I hope you'll never gain it, because I love how everything you write just it fleshes stuff out. I mean, the Space Quest 6 elevator, it's brilliant. I love how you're probably the one adventure game designer who sees that it pays off as if you have to keep the player exploring, there has to be some kind of payoff. You have to make people laugh. It doesn't just have to degenerate into a click fest, and that's the kind of vibe I get from your writing.
Yeah, you're the king of extraneous information.
Yes.
Thank you.
Francisco.
What do you I'll one-up you.
You had to.
I have here
I did have to. I couldn't.
I have here a laser etching of Cedric that my ex-girlfriend did for me.
Oh man.
Is that why she's your ex-girlfriend?
She must really hate you, but yeah.
No, this actually proves that I think she's still we're still good friends, good enough friends for her to do something like this for me, which she did after we broke up.
That's not being a good friend. That is just shitting in your drawers while you sleep.
This was
I actually did that, and I got no points for it.
What, shitting in your girlfriend's drawers? That's weird.
Oh, never mind that depressing subject. We're talking about Josh.
Yeah. And Serena just fucked off. Oh, Serena's back.
Sorry,
Serena fucked on.
Go soon, but I'd like to say, favorite game, Serena. Josh's performance was well done.
Yes.
Josh knocked that out of the park, didn't he?
Yes, and if I can get a bit of
he was on fire the whole time.
If I can get a bit of egomania out of the way, I wrote a lot of lines in that game that I didn't think anyone was going to be able to carry. I mean, stuff like the clock, but Josh totally knocked it out of the park. And hearing Josh Mandel read out lines that I wrote, I have underpants that have not yet recovered from the experience.
Yeah, mine too. If I were wearing any underpants, they would be sullied by this point. And Josh voice acting the protagonist in Serena. That is just fantastic. Josh, you yourself, do you have a favorite amongst the games that you've worked on?
Well, Freddy Farkas, only because it was my first, but and just the emotion of doing it and seeing it produced and having it be released was just completely overwhelming. But Callahan's is closest to my heart because of the puns and the wordplay and the ability to do so much with the legend. The legend arrangement where I could come up with as many verbs as I wanted for any particular object, just gave me the freedom to do stuff that I'd never been able to do at Sierra. So Probably Callahan's.
Okay, so when you hand off like a voice script for a game like Callahan's to the voice actors, and they just look it over, and it's like 10,000 pages. Do they? Have you ever experienced any heart attacks in the studio? Just
No, that's why I work remotely. That they can turn off the mic when they're cursing me, which they almost always remember to do.
I have like a very, very, very nasty joke, but you're not gonna like it.
Go for it.
Come on.
I was just gonna say how, and we all know this wasn't the case, so bear with me, but I was just thinking how the death of Gary Owens could maybe be a delayed reaction caused by the Space Quest 6 elevator.
That is tasteless in a funny way.
Well, I get the idea that if Gary wouldn't have liked it, then the character he played certainly would have. He was the king of snark. He was the best narrator that adventure games ever had.
Best ever.
I would agree.
No,
yeah.
Hands down. R.I.P. Gary Owens.
Yes.
Fred, can you take us into the next point while I?
Yes,
I gotta go. So,
oh no!
you guys have fun.
Oh,
Unfortunately,
Serena.
I have
Serena.
plans, and we're
Talk to you soon.
running late.
Yeah, it was great to see you again. Stay safe. Hey.
Yeah,
Mwah.
Serena, we love you. We love you. Thank you for bringing a feminine perspective to the boys' club.
Yes, thank you.
And
thank you for not going topless.
Yeah, yeah. Also, that. But thank you so much for joining us.
Yes,
we really appreciate it.
And this is where Josh will not stop going on about where Serena is.
What?
I wonder when she's gonna come back. Where is she?
Oh.
Where is?
Now it's synced in. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was just terrible. Fred, please be a dear and put on the next topic while I just.
Next topic is more about mechanics again, and I hope your ego has been satisfied, Josh.
I'm doing great here.
Fantastic. Should you feel like doing the card throwing up trick again, please entertain us. Anyway, the next topic we have is interactive fiction or text adventures. As you'll notice, we did a lot of episodes where we talked about mechanics, and this had us, if I remember correctly, talking about both text adventures of yore and how you could do a text adventure today. So, Brian, what's your relationship to text adventures? And is it a genre that, as was mentioned with 3D and FMV, a genre that has untapped potential to you?
Untapped potential, I don't know, because there's such a long, proud history of text adventures in like such diverse settings and by such talented people. I grew up, like when I was a little kid, I would play some text adventures and like by Infocom, and I was not very good at them, but what I just loved more than anything else was walking around these environments and trying to use this on that, or just to look at this or that and read what the descriptions were. That was by far my favorite thing. I've never been good at them. I've never finished one. That being said, because of like my ignorance of the genre, I actually made a text adventure game with an engine called Quest. It was a game called You Are What You Eat, about a terrible, egotistical rich man who has like a revelatory psychedelic experience eating a hamburger. I'm very proud of that game, and it was really hard to do, and I tried to put in some mechanics and puzzles and stuff into it, but my own brain got the better of me, and I just couldn't really wrap my head around the engine. I was not good enough. But other people have done some clever puzzles, I know. My old co-host for my show, Chris, would very fondly speak about different mechanics having to do with how many turns something took you, or if you revisit the same area more than once, then you get completely different descriptions. It's a really liberating media because you don't need to render out graphics or record audio or anything like that. It's just you write another sentence and then it becomes a reality. So it is
very pure.
I probably owe the genre more of respect than I've given it.
What are some of your favorite examples, and what are some of your least favorite examples? I mean, you did mention that you'd never finished any text adventures, but it sounds like you played a fair share. So
I played a bunch. I guess my favorites. I wish I could even tell you who it was that designed them. One of them was called Planetfall. That might be Steve Maretsky. That's
Yes,
one
it
where
is.
you're on like what's it? Yeah, it is. That's one where you're on a space station, and I can't tell you very much more than the fact that you're on a space station. I
Maybe
was
you remember Floyd?
I didn't make it far enough to see Floyd, actually.
Ah.
I know that he's famous, but I didn't make it far enough to meet him. About the farthest I got was finding a first with different colored goo in it, and me being a kid, all I could really think to do with it was either to throw it or to eat it. And so my co-host Chris told me that eventually, yeah, you are actually supposed to eat it. So I'll chalk that up to intelligence and not dumb luck, I suppose. The other one that kind of comes to mind was one called Infidel, which takes place in the desert, and it was very easy to die, and you had to plan ahead. That was another one where the puzzles were kind of, I won't call them timer based because there's no timer, but like turn based, where you'll die of thirst if you don't have the right objects with you, stuff like that. So that was a really interesting take on a survival sort of a game.
And Infidel had a very controversial ending because I think they call it a Hobson's choice. You could either collect the treasure, the very last piece of treasure, and get all the points and die, or you could escape the pyramid, one treasure short, and live, but you didn't have all the points. So you have to make a choice for it. That really pissed people off.
Kobayashi Maru.
Did you say Hop Singh's choice? Wasn't that the name of your Indian in Freddy Farkas?
No, that was the cook, Hop Singh.
Ah, yes.
Serena was the Indian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you seem to be you seem to be very knowledgeable about text adventures, Josh. You've never actually worked on one, right? Because you joined the you joined Sierra at like I don't know, with the trite phrase "Unleash Your Suit, Larry" 2. I guess that's where the eyes were kind of open. Do you want fries with that? But did you ever have any ambitions of making a text adventure? It seems to be a genre you're very knowledgeable about, you know, from what I gather.
Well, I actually made a text adventure myself. I've never actually told anyone about it.
Exclusive!
Some of my friends at the time, who were also into text adventures a little bit, they played it. But I forget what little engine I used for it, but that was probably back in about 87 or 88. And then I beta tested a couple of text adventures. There was one for Surtech. I forget the name of that game. And then I also beta tested for Infocom something called Sherlock, which was actually designed by Bob Bates.
Oh, I think I know the name, certainly.
Well, Bob Bates, yeah, he was the head of Legend. He went on to head up Legend along with Mike Verdu. So we worked together there, but I had worked for him years and years earlier on Sherlock, which was a very good text adventure adaptation, very true to the books. And I still love text adventures. I almost never play them anymore, but someday I would love to do one.
Cool.
With the engines like Inform 7 and Twine and stuff, especially Twine, I think, which is sort of like just stringing HTML documents together and just having a little follow your mention. Would you ever like do something like that in your spare time?
Yeah, possibly.
Because you're a writer and everything.
Something that is, and we're obviously going to get to Francisco, but Josh's input beckons a question about what do you make of the text adventures that were basically based on novels on a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning that if you deviated from the path set out in the novel, you would die. That is to me a very unique genre because you kind of have a blueprint already of what you're going to do. And you have basically, if you've read the novel, you've read a walkthrough prior to playing the game. But at the same time, often, if you don't read the novel prior to playing the game, you're screwed because you have no idea what the character is going to do. So what do you make of that particular genre?
Hitchhiker's Guide.
There is a lot of there has been a lot of debate, certainly in the 2000s and the 2010s, about reading in general. Is our reading culture going downward? So these kind of games, do they enhance that or do they weaken it?
Longest question ever.
Go
for it.
And I'm not even sure it was a question.
There were several questions, but
it sounds like a horrible way to read a book, basically.
Short answer to a horribly long question.
Thank you. Yes.
Cool.
Anyway, we haven't been with Francisco yet on this subject. Have you ever felt tempted to do a text adventure? If you have, then why? And if you haven't, then why not?
No, actually, I coded one in BASIC when I was like 6, because I used to subscribe to 321 Contact magazine, and they used to have these little things in the back where you could copy the code, line by line and make your own little game. So it was this little text adventure about being in a haunted house, and you had to escape the haunted house and whatever. And I spent a week coding it. And then when I finally played it, I realized I knew what all the responses to all the actions were, so it was pretty pointless. But that's been my only experience with a text adventure. I
recall that. That is like one of the most unsatisfactory things about having worked in games, because I thought that too when I started up Valhalla Strikes Back when I was 14, and I remember thinking, I'm so looking forward to playing this when it's done. Fast forward 9 years later, it's done, and I know my way inside out about this game. So it's just like, what's the point of playing it? It's tainted, it's spoiled. It is often sad that you can't sit down and enjoy your own work. So I do feel for you guys in that respect.
But yeah, I haven't really played all that many text adventures. I never really played any of the old Infocom ones. I played a really crappy one that I got on a shareware disc called McMurphy's Mansion, where you were looking for bars of gold in your uncle's Scottish country manor. And the thing that was cute about it was that it was like, are you a lassie or a laddie? And then you'd type in, and then it would address you as such throughout the rest of the game. And the parser, the narrator had a very Scottish tone to it. So yeah.
Oh, great.
The worst text adventure I ever played was actually not really a text adventure, but it was for the Commodore 64, so you can call it a text adventure. That was the Fantastic Four adventure, which did have graphics, but in the same sense that the Mystery House and
static screens.
Yeah,
I played one of those as well, based on Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island, which was interesting because I loved Treasure Island. I loved the story, but it was a pretty bad text adventure.
And so was the Fantastic Four, because you start out in a shack somewhere, and then you walk outside, and if you turn left, you end up in a swamp, and you just sink gradually. Like every time you type something in, it just goes, that does not work. You are sinking. No. Okay. Cool. Do I restart the fucking game? What?
That is such a design sin. I mean, how the fuck were you supposed to know? Also, it's the fucking Fantastic Four.
Yeah, just get out of the swamp.
You'd never see Batman or Superman get stuck in a swamp. No,
that would be the greatest.
Yeah, that would be Superman's two weaknesses: kryptonite and swamps.
Superman now stuck in quicksand.
I actually owned a Incredible Hulk text adventure game. I was so excited to bring this home from the store because I always thought the Hulk was a cool character. I load up the game, and it's like, you are tied to a chair. And so...
Already, off the bat, we're not doing well.
I tried tons of ropes.
50 Shades of Grey, the text adventure.
What's that?
50 Shades of Grey, the text adventure.
Oh, I was like 8 years old. I only knew... I didn't know any Shades of Grey. tried, like, untie ropes, stand up, get angry, break chair. I tried everything I could think of, and I gave up not getting one single step into that text adventure.
So you never got off the chair?
Never got out of the chair. That poor fictional character to this very day.
However,
Yeah,
sexual
how
predilections
sitting there?
do surface from time to time.
I had that game, Brian. I had that game.
God.
And I didn't get anywhere with it either.
What do you actually do?
You didn't get him out of the chair either?
No. It was so frustrating.
It's one of those unfinishable games. I've been there. I mean, everyone who's played the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy adventure game and gotten stuck on the Babelfish puzzle, you all know exactly what I'm talking about. This is
like baloney, man.
Like you just go, what does this game want from me? We're back to game goals again. What does this game want from me? But being stuck, being tied to a chair from the outset of the game and nothing ever did you ever look it up? Did you ever figure out what you were actually supposed to do?
I got it in my mind to go find a hint book, which I could never find. I mean, it was either the 80s or the early 90s, so internet wasn't an option. So I was out of options. I forgot about it for like a decade.
I have got to look this up. This is.
I'm a little curious too now. I'll see what I can publish.
So, Fred, next topic.
Yes, next topic would be. This is relevant for Josh to start because it's about. This was where the series meandered, if you remember, because this is about sound design, and this was the first example of pure, undiluted professionalism we ever had on the air, courtesy of you. We're not going to dwell on that, but basically, let's talk about sound design. You know, including everything: sound effects, voices, music. And I'm going to start with Josh because we've already, kind of been there teasing Josh about his Graham voice and such. But Josh, something that is not often respected as far as your career goes is that you're actually also a pretty accomplished actor.
That's a question.
Oh.
You are an accomplished actor?
It's always been a side thing for me. I mean, it's ever since I quit comedy in the late '80s. The acting it's just a side thing. So, yeah, I mean, it bothered me the way King's Quest V turned out, but I didn't have any control.
You and me both, man.
What's the story? I mean, you've gone on record saying that the King Graham voice is the worst acting job you've ever had, or the worst acting performance you've ever done.
The worst performance? Oh yeah, probably.
I
mean, it's kind of hard to choose. It's just that Roberta and Mark Siebert had a very definite plan in mind for Graham, that he was a cartoon-style hero who was never anything but buff. That was the word, buff. And he was never tired. They said he can never be tired. He's never angry. He's never emotional in any way. He's just buff. And anytime I tried to do anything to add some dimension to it, they would say, no, you're falling out of it again. That's not buff.
You do have one great line though, and I haven't actually triggered it, but I've seen clips of it. There is one point where you get frustrated with Cedric, where you just go, "Come on, Cedric!" And I suppose that was the lone exception. It's a brilliant line. Because it just sums up everything the player has been feeling at that point. I can't tell you where exactly it appears. I think it's outside Mordek's castle at some point.
I was probably getting out my frustration.
Yeah.
On Cedric or just in general?
Well, to all appearances on Cedric.
It goes on to say, "Fuck you, Richard Aronson, I'm fucking out of here."
Oh, poor Richard. He has nothing but my greatest respect and sympathies.
Richard.
He did not sign up to be to do the voice of the laughing stock of the adventure game genre forever. But that's what he got.
This is probably why he's kind of defensive about the Cedric voice. I mean, he's been on the Sierra Gamers Facebook group and answering questions in a very nice and cordial manner. But
my problem is that
if you bring up Cedric,
my problem is whenever someone brings up critique of Cedric, he's like, well, I didn't ask for this. I acted out the characters Roberta wanted. I mean, that's very strong words to use against someone. Would you say that you hated me personally based on a performance? No, I do agree with the poor man. The problem is that whenever I read just a comment from him, I am reading it out in my mind in his Cedric voice.
But you know, Cedric isn't the worst offender in King's Quest V. My favorite by far is Sir Grey Wolf.
I love Sir Grey Wolf.
In the crystal cave,
you will find the Yeti.
I am so lost and yet so entertained.
Queen Isabella will be pleased.
Hello, I'm Tom Waits.
Pretty much.
Rain dogs.
God.
I like
tales of it, man. She'll write.
Actually, just briefly, let me just get a feel for what the voice acting days of mid-90s Sierra was, Josh. I mean, was it just like picking some dude off the mailroom and just shoving them in front of a microphone and just going, here's your lines, read this shit?
I've long wanted to hear this.
It wasn't that formal.
Wow.
But it was pretty far along the way to horrible, right?
Did you just literally drag people into the studio and just go, what am I doing? I'm just going to duct tape you to this chair.
There were auditions. There were actually auditions.
There were?
So what you're hearing, believe it or not, is the cream of the crop.
Scott, Josh, who auditioned for
Scott? Did you just call him Scott?
Yeah, because I just have this
Not the
wet
first
dream.
time.
I just have this wet dream of. Sorry, Josh, nothing against you, but I got you mixed up with Scott because as you said those words, I had this instant wet dream of Scott Murphy auditioning as Cedric.
I would dearly love to hear that.
Do you remember any auditions that didn't make the cut?
No, we weren't in. I wasn't in. You know, the auditions were not done in front of the other auditioners. So only Mark and Roberta and whoever else might have been involved that I can't think of would have heard all the auditions. But I can imagine Scott auditioning for Cedric and putting his own spin on it. That'd be great. It'd be like,
that would be terrific.
It'd be like, oh fuck, Graham, don't go in there.
Scott Murphy, Cedric, too buff. Might be a better match for Graham.
No, wait. Let Josh finish his Scott Murphy audition, please.
Oh no, it's very short. It's just oh fuck, Graham, don't go in there.
Just pitch that up, and there you go.
That would actually have been better.
Oh, fuck, Graham. Jesus fucking Christ, Graham.
I'm curious, did they ever give any sort of, like, reason why they wanted Cedric to do the falsetto? Because, I mean, like, I don't know, he's an owl. I've never heard, owls are usually, like, wise and,
it's a fucking poisonous snake. What more do you want, you hat-wearing asshole?
It came from the Who. You know, when you make an owl Who sound, you kind of go into a falsetto, and so it was all.
Sorry, I thought you were referring to the band.
Yeah,
People try to drag us down, talking about my generation.
There has to be a scene where Cedric just goes, and then the snake appears. Anyway,
Graham has got a squeeze box. Throw it at the Yeti. Yay!
Also, cheese machines are very fun.
On that note, I have to duck out.
Who are you?
You what?
I have to duck out. But
Love you too.
yeah, well, I just installed the Google Hangouts app on my phone, so I can come back, but I'll be on the subway, so I'll be intermittent, but I will come back.
I do have personal advice for you. If you're on the subway, wear a shirt.
Oh yeah, no, I'm definitely no. I have to go out and put on clothes now, unfortunately. So
I think everyone is distinctly disappointed.
Yeah, well, what are you gonna do? Anyway, I'll catch you guys in a little bit.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. If you never make it back, we love you.
All right. Well, thank you. I'll be back. Don't worry.
Guys, I've only got about 5 minutes to go myself.
Yeah.
Right.
So basically, it's us. Let's cherry pick one single topic.
Let's do that.
Because one thing that I did like out of the subjects we covered, because we have 3 left. We have narration and historical settings in adventure games, and we have crowdfunding. Out of those 3, I would pick narration, not in the least because Josh is here, but Brian is also very knowledgeable about adventure games. So what I remember us talking about on that episode was different kinds of narration: third-person narration, first-person narration, drawbacks and benefits. So at this point, I'm going to stop asking questions because I'm not into asking you guys closed questions because I just want you to chip in. So narration in an adventure game. What are your thoughts on it?
First person, second person, third person, anything?
Yeah, any kind of narration.
My vote goes to second person, I guess. You were doing this, you were doing that. That seems the most personal to me somehow.
Second person narration. This is one we should have had Francisco in for, because when we did the episode, I completely fucked up, and I have a degree in literature, so I completely messed up flat nipples and everything. First person versus third person versus second.
That is true. That is true. Yeah. But we both kind of fucked up. I have 1 term of comparative literature behind me, and I fucked up as well. So.
But Brian, second person narration.
Oh, that was a question too, I guess.
Yes.
Kind of.
I don't know what more to say about it. I mean, I think it is personal. It's like it's your narrator. The narrator is telling an audience what you, the star, are doing. Is, I guess, the way that I see it. I think that I don't know that that's necessarily the right way to do it, and it depends on who the narrator is, I suppose. Because first person, I'm doing this. I think that also holds a lot of clout. I guess it's artistic license by the designer to make that decision.
But I guess the question is, does it create kind of a disconnect between the player and the protagonist of the story? Instead of going, I am doing this, or in the Broken Sword sense, I did this. I quite like the Broken Sword kind of.
Yeah, and if I may butt in, does it create a disconnect in the sense that what I gather from what you're saying, Brian, is that you like that the narrator refers to you, the player. But does that make it more difficult to establish the player character in the game world? That it's referring to you. Does it break immersion once you're forced to realize that shit, this is not me. This guy looks nothing like me. He's acting nothing like I would.
Well, that's a good point, I guess. The only thing that I can think of that breaks immersion more than that is having some disembodied voice talking about the stuff that you're doing. Narrator is kind of a fourth wall breaking thing to begin with, right?
The Space Quest kind of narrator, really.
Space Quest does it in such a fun way. I like the way that you guys discuss Space Quest, in the fact that the narrator himself is kind of a character that even interacts with the protagonist. I think that's awesome. That's just a very meta, off-the-wall way to handle it. But it's kind of a way.
There will be no one like Gary.
No, but really, that is a very, very good point, and one that I have always wanted to ask Josh, and now I have the opportunity to do so. In Space Quest 4, Roger Wilco is completely unaware that there is a narrator in the game, but the narrator talks to you, the player, in sort of a fourth wall breaking kind of thing. But Roger is completely unaware that there is a narrator in his life. However, in Space Quest 6. the narrator interacts with Roger and is kind of a voice in his head. What was the reasoning behind that, Mr. Mandel?
Because in my mind, I could no longer justify the narrator having as much character as he does and did in Space Quest 4. He has so much character that how can you deny him characterhood?
Well, he does have character in Space Quest 4, but he is the voice of the player and not the protagonist itself. He is.
But in Space Quest 4, he also makes comments on the player.
It's true. You don't quite know in Space Quest 4 at any point whether he's referring to you, the player, or to Roger Wilco. It's kind of a blur.
If we take it as read that he's referring to the player's action and not Roger's actions, then I can see that there's a kind of a disconnect between the protagonist and the player, but the narrator is sort of the glue that binds that whole thing together. The narrator is commenting on your actions, the player, and not Roger's actions. Whereas in Space Quest 6, he will actually, he comes down from this pedestal as the omniscient narrator and becomes sort of this. What are you doing, Roger? Why is this? He's not as filled in on the whole plot.
He becomes more tangible. He becomes an actual character. He's kind of like. Before he was omnipotent, now he's just Jiminy Cricket.
So justify yourself.
I can't really put it into words. I don't remember ever sitting down and thinking, okay, now I'm going to have the narrator actually converse with Roger. I don't think that was like a conscious decision. I think that probably grew out of the fact that I was writing a character that I had not really written before. I mean, I'd written some of the narration in Space Quest 4, but not a great deal of it. The two guys had done most of that. So here I was writing for Gary Owens with a certain developed character that had been developed in Space Quest 4, and he just, I don't know, it just seemed like a way to make him more alive.
But you did sort of downgrade him from the omnipotent narrator to sort of being in the moment with Roger instead
if I may butt in, did you mention that you wrote for Gary Owens? So was it laid down in stone at that point that Gary Owens was going to be the narrator?
It wasn't in stone, but it was expected.
Oh,
it was anticipated.
So you wrote the role for him.
Yes, but he had already created that role more or less with the job that he did on Space Quest 4. So I was just trying to fit in something there that was going to be true to the character that he had created in Space Quest 4, and while he wasn't quite as omniscient as he used to be, he was still serving to the greatest degree I can think. He was still serving the same function. So, I didn't really think beyond that. It's like I would write a line and I'd say, does this sound like Gary Owens' narrator from Space Quest 4? Yes? Then it goes in. And it wasn't more complicated than that.
Which is a good point, obviously, but it does have this sort of incongruence with the Space Quest 4 narrator, who is talking directly to the player, whereas in Space Quest 6 he's talking directly to Roger.
The narrator, however, in Space Quest as a series was sometimes talking to Roger and sometimes talking to the player. It was not set in stone. When they say, thanks, you're being you've been a real pant load, they're talking to the player. They're not talking to Roger, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's always been this murky area for Space Quest narration. and the defining factor seems to be, is it funny and sarcastic, and does it make fun of Roger and/or the player? If it does, then it fits.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the narrator embellishes a lot, and that's what I like the most about the Space Quest narrators in general.
I'm sorry. What did you say?
Sorry, I said that the narrator embellishes. The narrator doesn't just describe the situation, but also has a comment or a metaphor or something for the situation, which I really enjoy.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Incidentally, I'm sorry, I have no idea how this is going to pan out, but I was just flung off basically with a something went wrong Google message. I don't know if what you just talked about after I was thrown out will be present in the YouTube stream.
We are still live.
It's broadcasting now.
Yeah.
So I hope.
But anyway, you're absolutely right, Brian. My favorite bit of Space Quest narration, where it could have just been you got eaten by a plant in Space Quest 2, but it just goes on this long ass rant about how you partake in its digestive system, and you see all these funny colors, and it's one of my favorite death messages of all time. But it is
Scott Murphy.
That is Scott Murphy at his best. Is the mushroom plant in Space Quest 2.
There's one line that comes to mind. I think it might have been from Space Quest 3 about your escape pod or something. It says that your velocity is like a giant spitting out a watermelon seed.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
It's terrific.
Yeah, when you get ejected from the garbage scow.
Okay.
Yeah, that is it. But anyway, just to cap this off, I know we're coming down to the wire, and we're gonna end in like a couple of minutes or something.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna keep you guys any longer.
Nah, you've already done a great service to your country, whatever country you're from. So we're not gonna keep you, gents. You've been absolutely fabulous. I do want to get one question in, and that is your favorite style of narration. Is it first-person narration, where the main character walks around describing shit out loud, apparently, or is it having a third-person or second-person narration, like a text box that pops up? Brian?
I'd say second-person or third-person, just because, as always, my very favorite thing to do in adventure games is to click the look icon on stuff. And I think Josh Mandel and Al Lowe are probably my favorite writers that do that so well.
Cool. And
I love you too.
Ooh, you don't want to go there, Graham.
Woo!
And Josh, I mean, LucasArts were all about the first-person narration, and Sierra were all about the third-person or second-person narration. What is your personal preference? Because I know Callahan had a first-person narrator.
It did, but that's what seemed to really fit that particular piece of fiction. My personal favorite is for second-person narration.
Yeah.
I think it gives me the most options for humor.
It does. You reach into your pants and discard the or something.
Francisco on the subway.
Oh God!
Oh my God!
Travel cam. Hey friends. Can I call you friends?
Friends.
Can I call you Speedy Gonzalez because you're on a fast moving train?
No.
No, you can't. And I'm not on a train, I'm in a car.
Aww.
Close enough.
I never get anything to work with.
Although I will admit Speedy Gonzalez was funny.
Only the first 10 times I heard.
Yeah.
And by 10 times you mean 110 times.
Yeah, something like that. Francisco, while you're here, we were talking about narrators and first person, second person, third person. Thank you for correcting us, by the way, on the difference between second and third person. Yeah. What is your favorite? Do you prefer a narrator, or do you prefer the protagonist just describing his surroundings out loud?
Also worth noticing is that Francisco was defying the laws of gravity just a second ago.
Yeah, I saw that. That was pretty goddamn impressive. Anyway, sir, please
Well,
take it away.
I had to turn my phone sideways to see the full screen, which now I can't anymore. So.
I love that story.
So, did you get the question, or should I repeat it?
Yeah. No, I got the question. I think I prefer third person. Not third person. I just prefer a narrator, second person. Because to me, it's really tricky to get the protagonist to like voice their thoughts and make it sound like they're thinking to themselves rather than talking out loud.
Which is one thing that always bothered me about first-person narration in Monkey Island and such, or in Full Throttle. Who are they talking to? If you look at stuff, who are they talking to?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes you get situations where there's other characters in the room and they'll react to what they're saying, so that kind of breaks that. It's kind of like Garfield, you know? Like, does John know Garfield? Can he hear what Garfield is saying, or does he not? Because sometimes he reacts, sometimes he doesn't.
Well, John, barring the fact that John is a nutcase, I do think most of us, it's kind of like a taboo, but I do think most people occasionally talk to themselves, if not very often, then certain...
Oh, are you kidding? All the time.
But we wouldn't go around and go, the drawer is closed, now the drawer is open, my dirty socks are in here,
right.
Stuff like that.
No, more like bump your head and go, you know, like Joe Pesci in Home Alone. That's how I talk to myself anyway. I bump my head into a lot of shit.
Yeah, because you're not that tall, I guess. Anyway, have we covered this topic?
I think we have, Mr. Def Leppard.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Silence of the Lambs, kind of thing. Francisco, thank you so much for joining us again. But we are kind of wrapping shit up here.
We're winding down. We could cover one last.
Oh, okay.
If people are into it, we could cover one last topic. And
are you guys into it?
I gotta go, guys.
You gotta go?
Don't let me stop you, but I've gotta go.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Brian. Please, everyone, check out the Square Waves FM podcast. It's fantastic when I'm not on it.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much, guys. It was really terrific to talk to you, and Josh, it was a real pleasure to talk to you as well. Great to meet you.
Brian, a pleasure, and I will download your podcast and start listening.
Oh, no pressure.
Please have a cup of coffee ready, because it's like 3 hours an episode.
Oh shit! Okay. Yeah. It's like this. All right, take it easy, guys. Great to talk to you.
Take care, Brian. Hey.
Congrats on your 2-year anniversary, Backseat Designers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Anyway, what are we going to talk about? We're going to wind this down with. I suppose we've already kind of been there. So one episode that we did that I really liked was crowdfunding, and it was the last one we did before doing this episode. So you've actually both kind of been there, haven't you? I don't know. Have you? My mind escapes me at the moment. Have you actually done a Kickstarter, Francisco?
Nope.
So it's just Josh, and of course.
No, I haven't either. I don't remember ever doing a Kickstarter. I have not done a Kickstarter.
No, it was this absolutely great guy who did the whole thing. Oh dear God!
He was such a paragon of integrity.
I don't recall his name. It's just a shame I don't recall his name. He was.
Me neither. What was his name? Like Peter. Pavel.
He really had the thing nailed down, and what I recall is that he was better at being Josh Mandel than you've ever been.
Oh
so.
my God! Oh,
he's got that going for him.
Jesus. So anyway, crowdfunding. Our conversation when we did the crowdfunding episode was mainly did crowdfunding kind of because it was supposed to be this kind of free form. All these people who didn't have the means.
It was for the indies, but what has happened now is that the big corporations have kind of gotten wind that this is a venue where we might be able to get an audience and not in the least get their money. So I guess our discussion on that show kind of took on an idealism versus realism angle, where I was kind of like the cynic realist and Trolls was the idealist.
So what do you think? I mean, corporations usurping the realm of crowdfunding to fund their own devious ends, or should it be like for the indies?
You're using some extremely suggestive wording here, I might add.
No!
I'm gonna go with it.
That's how it goes.
It gives me diarrhea.
Can't blame you. Francisco, would you ever consider doing a crowdfunding campaign? And also, if you would, what would you do to sort of take attention, or to sort of bring attention in front of companies with huge PR divisions and such?
I don't think I would do a Kickstarter, and I mean I'm lucky enough to be in a position right now where I don't see myself needing to. I just don't feel like dealing with that headache. It just seems like more trouble than it's worth, honestly.
Yeah. We should put this question to Jacob.
But why would you not want to work with that great guy whose name escapes me? He's a hoot.
I don't know. Is that another Cedric reference?
He's a hoot!
I would consent to doing another Kickstarter if...
You say another, but you didn't mention that you never did one.
Yeah, but that didn't fly. I would do one if Cedric were in charge of it.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. And that'd be the entire Kickstarter video would just be, "Woo! Please back this campaign.
Back 500. If you pledge $500, I'll show my feathery ass."
Ooh, you want another update? I'm not going there.
Is that your barbecue?
Ooh, you want value for your money's worth? I'm not going in there.
Ooh, it'll be ready when it's ready.
Get in the grill, Cedric. Get in the grill.
And the final thing that happens is project get cancelled. Crispin shows up and goes, "Allow me to explain." And then he just basically lays out everything you've read in every preceding update. Seriously, I love that. Crispin is the worst example of Mr. Exposition ever, because he says nothing that you didn't know already.
Fred is going off the deep rails, guys. I don't see this evolving into a...
Allow me to explain. Well, yes, my son got shrunk. Yeah, son got shrunk. Yes, and the evil wizard Mordok trapped him in a glass bowl. In a glass bowl, yes.
This is not going to evolve into a serious discussion, is it?
Fucking idiot.
Maybe we should just call this an evening.
Maybe we should. I don't know it.
Well,
Guys,
it's a spectacular season finale.
Thank you.
Absolutely great having you, and I'm extremely grateful for you hanging around for this long.
Yeah.
No one apart from ourselves will tolerate us for that long, so
I'm very surprised.
Well,
Josh
because
Mandel,
if there's one thing I've learned from watching you guys and from interacting with you on Facebook and everything, it's that you don't want to piss these guys off. So I'm here.
And we dearly, dearly love you, sir. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you join us for our season finale. I'm very, very grateful to be able to have this chat with you.
You'll keep your life.
You are definitely one of my big-time idols within the adventure game sphere.
No, that's a mistake.
Yes, I
know.
I'm also a huge fan, and in retrospect, the Space Quest fan game I worked on owes a lot to you. The humor is, I like to think, taken straight out of a book that you wrote the foreword to use a labored metaphor.
Who are you kidding, dude? It's basically Monkey Island and Space Quest universe.
And on that bombshell, while I'm about to see if I can catch a late night train to kill my partner.
Oh, by the way, before you do, I also want to thank Francisco, who went above and beyond with a seatbelt and joined us once again. Francisco, you're an absolute delight. Please give my best to your hetero life mate, Ben. And
did you forget his name?
No, I didn't. I just wanted to say the word hetero without stumbling over the syllable.
Oh, right.
Yes,
Okay,
I would.
fair
I would like to extend the thanks to everyone who participated tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You guys are great. You guys are very. Thank you so much for joining our silly little stupid podcast.
Thank you. Looking forward
you.
to next season.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here. It was a pleasure to.
Stay safe. Have a great summer. What remains of it, and we'll probably see each other out there.
Yeah.
So, hey guys.
See you around the Chrono stream.
Time, Joggy.